Okay, and everyone is in the virtual rooms? All
Yep,
righty.
everyone's here.
Okay.
No audience.
Um, oh, well, not surprised there. All right. So good evening, everyone. This is the school committee. I'm going to go ahead and start. As the chair of this meeting, I need to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. School committee members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Hillary Griffiths,
Yes.
Mara Hogan,
Yes.
Alexis Fishbone,
Yes.
and I know Mary will be joining us a little bit later. So Colleen, just make note of that when she joins. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Colleen Andrade,
Yes.
Brian Haas,
Yes.
Chuck Karajanis,
Yes.
Liz York,
Yes.
and we do not have Wayne this evening, correct?
Correct.
Okay. This open meeting of the Maynard School Committee is being conducted as a remote meeting as allowed by Chapter 2 of the Act of 2023, signed into law by Governor Healy on March 29, 2023. This act continues to exempt certain provisions under the open meeting law regarding remote meetings and public participation until March 31st, 2025. This committee is convening via Zoom as posted on the district's website, while an option, oh, we are remote, so I can skip this part. In the event, just to make note, if there are some technological issues, we will do our best to reconvene, but because we are all remote, the meeting may have to be suspended and rescheduled for another time. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Accordingly, be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording, which is audible to and viewable by the public. If you plan on recording or broadcasting this meeting, please raise your hand. I do not see any other hands raised. Along with the agenda, most of tonight's meeting materials are available on the Maynard Public School website in the folder 2024-2025 agendas under the tab School Committee. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda and documents unless the chair notes otherwise. Public comments. Oh, I see Mary is in the wing. So awesome, Mary. I'm still doing the verbiage, so you didn't miss anything. I just want to make sure you can hear me. Okay, I can't hear you, but I'm wondering if.
Sorry, I just unmuted. Yes.
Awesome, terrific. Great. Okay, public comment agenda item is devoted time for the school committee to hear from the public. As such, its structure primarily supports a unidirectional recording of public comments rather than a bi-directional conversation. Here are the general rules for any form of public comment period. Any person wishing to speak and make a comment during a virtual meeting may do so by signing up and speaking in advance up into the public meeting agenda item and there's the link that's been posted on the agenda. Please have your Zoom name match so that we may be able to unmute you to speak. All public comments are limited to 3 minutes to ensure that everyone who wishes to comment has the opportunity to be heard. No person may comment more than once without permission of the chair. As time allows, the chair could consider allowing persons to comment a second time, especially if it's related to a topic that has not yet been brought up. Any person wishing to submit written comments to be read by the chair may do so by emailing in advance up into public comment agenda item to comments for SC meeting at maynard.k12.ma.us. The subject line must state public comment. Please include your first and last name and your town to ensure your comments are read. Comments will be read for 3 minutes. If the submitted comments are longer, then they may be suspended at the 3-minute mark. To ensure all comments may be read in their entirety, it's suggested that you keep them to approximately 350 words. However, submitted comments longer than 350 words will be included in the public record in their entirety. Anyone wishing to submit a comment for public record after the public comments agenda item has passed can still do so by emailing comments for SC meeting at maynard.k12.ma.us up until the end of the meeting, specifically stating their desire to have these comments, additional comments included. For meeting ground rules, I will first introduce the item on the agenda. Permit me to cover some ground rules. I will introduce speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will ask each member if they have any comments, questions, or motions they would like to make. I will go through the meeting for additional comments or questions if time allows. I'll go through members, meeting. Please hold off speaking until your name is called, and remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair. And take care not to interrupt anyone who is speaking. Finally, each vote taken tonight will be conducted via roll call since we are all remote. And before I move on to the first item on the agenda, permit me to call the meeting to order via roll call at 7:08. Mary Branley,
Here.
Mara Hogan. Oh, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about
Hillary
that.
Griffiths,
Yes.
Alexis Fishbone,
Yes.
and Natasha Rivera. Yes. All right. Now, moving on. We do have a few public comments that I will go ahead and read. I just wanted to confirm. I do see some folks that are logged in who sent their comments. And I know we kind of reverted to remote pretty on the whim. So I just want to give those folks an opportunity. I can read your comment, Kathleen. I just wanted to, I know that you had sent a comment. I'm happy to read it, or if you wanted to have the opportunity to speak yourself, I certainly fine. I don't know if, Colleen, if you can unmute Kathleen Fitzgerald.
Hi, if you could read it, that would be great. I'm not
Okay.
anywhere where I have it in front of me. Thanks.
Nope, that's fine. I just wanted to confirm. And the same Maggie as well. I think you had, let me just confirm. We had a couple that came through. Colin, there was one from Maggie, is that right?
I don't believe so.
Okay, okay. Well, Maggie, in any case, I know that I just see that you logged in, and I don't know if you have a particular public comment because we went to remote altogether. So I just wanted to reserve.
Natasha, she did sign up to speak in person based
Okay.
on the handbook.
Okay, okay, on the handbook. So so Maggie, I'm gonna go ahead and if we can unmute Maggie, Colleen, and hi Maggie.
Hi, thank you. I just
welcome.
wanted to give some input on the handbook. I disagree with the attendance policy, and I'm trying to find the section. Juggling the technology is not my strong suit.
I hear you. It's a lot of back and forth. Take your time.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just trying to find the section that I wanted to comment on. Okay, it's item number 2 under attendance. It was a subcategory, and on CRAs. And in my experience, and with working in schools for many years, I do not find CRAs to be a supportive avenue for dealing with absences. I think there's always a spectrum of contributing factors to absences, and I think there are better ways to investigate what is going on with the family and what supports are needed, and what is the the cause of the absences or the underlying issues that are resulting in absences. And is it, often in my experience, it's sometimes an issue around trauma, sometimes an issue around, could be homelessness or lack of other resources or mental health issues. And I think that jumping to having a child get court involved is has a negative impact and it is not beneficial to the family. And I like to see, in my tenure as a teacher, I've worked with guidance and administration to come up with alternative plans that work for the student and the family to help that student achieve success. So I think I've overgone my time.
No,
Sorry.
you're right there. No, I
just-
appreciate you sharing that, and thank you for your providing that feedback. I wanted to go ahead, and now I don't see any other folks remotely for public comment, so I'm going to go ahead
you.
and thank you very much, Maggie. I'm going to go ahead and pivot to the emails that we received. So the first one is says, "Dear school committee members, I am concerned about the handbook's use of child required assistance CRA guidelines. The current handbook states that after only 8 absences, school can file on children in court for behavior attendance reasons and therefore are a huge link in the school to prison pipeline. Policy is literally putting our Maynard students in the system and are overseen by probation officers and not able to utilize the services available to Maynard parents and students outside of the court system. In this post-pandemic era, 8 absences seems a very short time to resort to the court intervention. Wouldn't Maynard schools want to work outside of the court systems to get the needs of the students? If CRAs are necessary, the guideline should state that other measures should be tried first, and only after that can the school start the CRA process. My feeling is that 18 might be a better number, and even then, as a last resort. Many mental health providers say having a CRA can slow the process because everything must go through the probation officer as opposed to parents, counselors at schools, or doctors. CRAs do not allow for greater access to services. In fact, they cause significant and often irreversible harm to many families. These CRA orders can put the whole family at risk, as parents must take time off from their jobs for court and probation appointments. They can very easily lead to children being taken from their families and placed in foster homes, group homes, and locked units. They can also harm the relationship between families and schools, which exacerbates attendance issues. There is evidence that CRAs are often applied in a discriminatory manner as well." Kimberly Connors for Deer Path number 4 in Maynard. Kimberly, thank you. The next public comment starts. "Hello, school committee members. Today, my attention was called to provision in the high school handbook that concerns child requiring assistance CRA guidelines. The stated concern was that court filings for behavior or attendance reasons would put students in the school to prison pipeline. I do not believe that a court filing necessarily means a route to prison, as I personally know of a now deceased court officer who helped many troubled children and their families. So what to do? I have a suggestion for the relevant school handbook section. How about changing, and this is the part, school administration reserves the right to work with the school resource officer and the family on a child requiring assistance CRA petition to the juvenile court if a student is absent more than 8 times in a term and is under the age of 16. And then the proposed change would instead say, school administration, with the advice and consent of at least one of the school resource officers or to the family, reserves the right to submit a child requiring assistance CRA petition to the juvenile court if a student is absent more than 8 times in a term and is under the age of 16. This would retain the option of getting assistance from the court while giving appropriate control to the school resource officer and or family. I don't think that the family would always have veto power. What if the family is abusive and part of the problem? Respectfully submitted, Jan Jones, 26 Nick Lane, Maynard. The next comment, dear school committee members, I am writing to express my concerns regarding the implementation of the child requiring assistance CRA process within our school system. While I understand CRA cases are intended to support children and families, I believe they are potential drawbacks that need careful consideration. 1, complex medical health issues. CRA cases that involve children with complex mental health challenges. It is essential to ensure that any intervention align with the child's well-being and mental health needs. Rushing into CRA proceedings without a thorough assessment may inadvertently exacerbate existing issues. 2, family dynamics. The CRA process can strain family relationships. Rather than solely focusing on punitive measures, we should explore alternative approaches that involve collaboration between schools, parents, and mental health professions. A holistic approach is crucial to address underlying family dynamics. 3, substance abuse concerns. Some CRA cases may involve substance abuse issues instead of punitive measures. We should consider providing support and resources to families dealing with substance abuse. Early intervention and counseling can be more effective than punitive action. 4, balancing education disruption. While CRA cases aim to address disruptive behavior, we must strike a balance. Excessive focus on disciplinary measures can disrupt the child's education and negatively impact their peers. We should explore preventative strategies and restorative practices. In light of these concerns, I kindly request that the school committee thoroughly evaluate the use of CRA and consider the following steps. Comprehensive assessment. Prioritize a comprehensive assessment of each child's situation before initiating CRA proceedings. Collaboration. Foster collaboration between schools, parents, mental health professionals, and community resources. Preventative measures. Invest in preventative measures and early intervention programs to address behavioral issues proactively. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I believe that by approaching CRA cases with empathy, understanding, and a focus on positive outcomes, we can better serve our students and families. Holly Blomster, Maynard. The next one, dear school committee members, I am writing to oppose the section of the high school handbook that authorizes the use of CRA's child requiring assistance petitions to address multiple absences for children under the age of 16. The handbook states that this is not a punitive measure, but referring a child and a family to the state juvenile court system and connecting them to DYS and DCF runs the risk of punitive action being taken, often when none is needed. A CRA might lead to a child being removed from the home and the family being deemed abusive. It is a deeply flawed system. As a foster parent, I know firsthand the turmoil and harm that the system can cause a family, specifically children. To thrust a family in that direction when other interventions could suffice is a slippery slope. Our community and schools have robust social services in place to provide a safety net for families. We should be turning to those services rather than offering a pathway to school to prison pipeline, to which early court involvement can sometimes lead. If our social services are not adequately evaluating and attending to the needs of families with absent children, then that is where we should turn our attention. Please offer parents assistance in obtaining an IEP or 504 if their child has anxiety or other mental health issues that are barriers to them attending school. Work with families rather than against them. Please do not outsource this task to the court system and DCF. These issues require a trauma-informed lens and a holistic understanding of families and children. Thank you. Kathleen Fitzgerald, 94 Great Road, Maynard. Thank you, Kathleen. And we have one more. Dear School Committee, I am writing about the school administration's policy of seeking a child requiring assistance CRA petition from the juvenile court for students under 16 with more than 8 absences, listed in the handbook under excessive absenteeism, truancy page 28 through 29. The policy is discretionary and no doubt well-intended, but it also carries risk. Involving children in the justice system at such an early stage of their lives can have disruptive effects on the child, their educational outcome, and their family. Such effect could also be counterproductive to the worthy goal of bringing about regular school attendance. Therefore, I respectfully urge the committee to consider this policy and the serious attention its consequences warrant. Thank you very much, Nikal Rao, Maynard, Mass. 01754. Thank you all for your public comments. Colleen, I'm just looking back in my email just to confirm. Did we get?
No, I have not heard back from that comment.
Okay, let me just go back to my inbox then.
You should see an email
I
from-
see. Okay, all right. So in the event, again, I know because we pivoted to remote, in the event that you do get an email from her without objection from the school committee, I would like to make a point to read it. It is there. We're just missing the town indication for that. Okay. That ends our public comment agenda item. Again, thank you everyone for sending in your thoughts on something that's so vital for our schools and for us for our discussions today. Moving on to urgent business. Superintendent Haas, is there anything urgent business?
No urgent business tonight.
Okay. Okay, then great. We will move on to the superintendent report.
Great. Hello, committee. Good to see you even remotely. Hopefully your power stays on and the storm has passed and cleanup's underway. We've had a busy summer. Principals, assistant principals, interviewing committees have been working hard. Truth be told, they worked really, really hard at the end of the year to have all of our hiring done in June. And as happens every summer, people find different opportunities elsewhere, and we're in the position of hiring the last few positions right now. But that's typical. And funny enough, we'll end up hiring in the next couple of days, for example, a special ed teacher or a math teacher at Fowler, which will then put just, the domino effect will then put a different school system in the same position of having to refill that. So we're all working really hard to get the best qualified applicants in place before the start of the school year, and we're well on our way. The district leadership team had 2 days of work together in June to sort of think about how we did this year, what we could do better, and sort of close out the year. And we had 2 days this week together as a leadership team to really think forward in terms of goals for this year and committees and representation on committees and professional development and a wide variety of topics, assessments. We had 2 guest speakers, if you will, one on the MAPS assessment, just to make sure that we're well-versed in looking at that data, and then helping teachers to then become well-versed at looking at that data. That's part of what we'll do this year. We also had Peter Piazza from the Commonwealth project, who helped us with our parent survey, which we're very excited about. The data is still somewhat raw, whereas the student and the staff data, it's already into a nice dashboard. So it's a little easier to compare that data, but we have the parental data on all those topics. So that's exciting. That took us a long time. I know Beth isn't on this committee anymore, but she should get credit for really helping us to get to that point, to get that off the ground. Most of the sections within the survey were valid and reliable, and they worked well. There were 2 sections that we have to work on a little bit that didn't work out as well as we thought. Either the question wasn't properly asked, or the answers, that options didn't match how we phrased the question. So we have a little bit of work just updating, but nonetheless, we're one of the few schools that actually have a parent survey going out and collecting data. So we're really proud of that. And there'll be more information about that. The technology department overall this summer has been working hard. One of the projects was more cameras at Fowler, which required a little bit more technology behind the scenes to be able to record and save and access that data. That are working on that now. The facilities department, we'll have Tony at one of our future meetings, so you can all say hi. In terms of technology, we'll have John Calabrese, our new director of technology, at one of our upcoming meetings as well. He's probably at school trying to get servers restarted, truth be told. And Tony, he gets like 1 vacation a year, our director of facilities. So I hope he's having fun in Florida. He'll be back with us on Monday, making sure we're ready to open for school. The Green Meadow building project, we've been meeting over the summer. We're really on schedule. There'll be information going out at the beginning of next week. They'll be putting up fences around the parts of Green Meadow, which we'll take some pictures. We actually talked about that at our safety meeting. Karen's very excited to take pictures, and or even one of the parents, I don't know what his job is, but he has access to drone aerial views of our area. So if we ask him, he may be able to get us sort of aerial views of Green Meadow, which I think would be super helpful as well, just to see where you can and can't go. But we've been meeting, we have subcommittees, we have furniture committees now. So that project is well underway, and it's exciting. Let's see. We're excited that Mary and Alexis are our school committee representatives on that committee, so they too will be getting all those updates, and that works well. I know we talked about a rooftop unit. We've actually talked about it quite a bit in spring, and it got postponed. It got postponed once more because we're waiting on the final parts. Actually, we're not, but Train is waiting on something called the curbing, which I understand is the connection between the unit and the roof. So that is back ordered on their end. So they are now planning on Indigenous Peoples' Day weekend. And what they said, they won't charge us the extra for working on a weekend or even a holiday weekend, if you will, to get that done. We just need it done when the building's not populated, at least that front section of the building. So we're working on that with them. Over the summer, we had asbestos removed from the basement around some pipes in Green Meadow, which is why, if you think about Green Meadow this summer, it was really unoccupied. We had moved our basic programming to the other 2 buildings and our summer programming to the other 2 buildings. So this is just sort of a recap of that. Memos went out about this already. The entire form report is posted online, as is the air quality report, which came back clean. Really a thumbs up to UEC, United Environmental Consultants, who really they work very well with us. Colleen simply gives them a call, says we need this, and they say, here's what we need to do. They work with Tony collaboratively and make that happen seamlessly. So they're definitely a good partner in anything environmental, and there's always environmental things. So we're grateful for them. I know we're going to talk more about bleachers later, so I'll sort of save that till later. So if we were at school, I had 2 pictures to show you, but I didn't bring them home because it was pouring, and they're big. So 2 of our students participated in a Safe Routes to School poster contest, and they won. The students are Austin Wild and Sadie Poulin. And we have, and so the Department of Transportation made posters for us. They made about a dozen posters. They're double-sided, English on one side, multilingual on the other side, and they will be posted around town with the select board's approval, because apparently that is the process that one must go through to post them anywhere besides school property. And it's kind of fun and exciting to get them posted around town. We do have Justin DeMarco, DPW director's support. We will have several members of the wellness committee will go to the next select board meeting to ask permission, and then we'll be able to put them around town. So it's my exciting news.
It is very exciting. And that is it for your report?
Yeah, because we'll talk about
Yeah, the bleacher.
later
Yeah. Okay.
tonight. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just
Thank
go
you.
around. Yeah, thank you very much. Just go around to the school committee, see if anyone
Sure.
has any questions or follow-up. Mauro, anything for superintendent report? Questions for Brian?
Just to clarify, that rooftop unit, that's the one on, at Fowler?
Correct. At Fowler at I call it the front of the building, kind of over the auditorium space.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Mary?
No, just a comment, well, actually two. So Keith Lenhart is the parent, and he works for Hanscom. So he's the one that has offered to do the drones, which will be
Yes.
fantastic. And he said he can actually do them more than once, because he can do them like every, couple of months or something, just to show, because one of our concerns obviously is, that everybody's safe and that, so he'll be able to, he offered to do that. So that's going to be very cool. And Brian, I just segueing on to that parent survey, when can we see the results of that? Is there a timeline on that?
I'll build a timeline next week with Chuck, and I'll check with Peter when he thinks we can get the data in a more usable. Right now, it's just, it looks like a giant spreadsheet.
We wouldn't
But-
understand. So yeah.
Well, you would, it just isn't easy. You definitely would. It's just not an easy view at this point, but I'll talk to him. And I know they're actively working on it because he said that on Tuesday, and I'll see if I can get a timeline from him.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alexis?
Nope,
Anything
I
for
don't have
Brian?
any questions.
Okay. Hillary?
I was cutting out a little bit, but for the Safe Roads to School, will you be able to share the location that those end up being posted so that, if people don't happen to cross certain locations, we can make a point to go check them out?
Absolutely.
you know,
And I can take
maybe-
pictures and share them with you as well. So tomorrow you'll get, if we were at school, I would have shown them to you, like
Hmm.
held them up, but I'll let you know
Aw.
where they are. And I'll
That's
send,
really
I can
fun.
take the pictures.
Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Anything else, Hillary? No. Okay, I have a couple of follow-up questions, Brian. Just to piggyback on Mauro's, the rooftop unit, I know that there was the original ask that we funded in the fall, and then there was some pivot that needed to happen in the spring just for, I think, the scope expanded slightly. Where are we are we still fine with the original authorization that will
For that
happen?
particular unit, we're within budget.
Okay, but we still have this other outstanding, which if I can recall, it was, we thought we had actually extra money we were going to be doing repair, but now is actually turning into another replace. Is that a correct
believe-
characterization?
Yeah, and I will get an update because I know Tony's been working with Train. Maybe
Okay.
not the last couple of days, but prior to that, and I'll get the most up-to-date information and timeline from him early next week.
That would be helpful if we could get, what we might potentially be short, if anything,
Mhm.
for that funding. Is it emergent, like what areas that impacts? Again, I know that we've talked about it a little bit, but I might be getting a little fuzzy with the original one. So,
Yeah, I'll
we-
get an update and share that with everybody next week. It's been a
Okay.
while since we've gone through it. And I
Yeah.
didn't anticipate a change. I didn't anticipate them being back ordered and us having
Yeah.
to wait another couple of months.
I guess my immediate concern is, do we need funding for that second, like that expanded scope that that turned in from a repair to a replace? So that part I want to figure out. We're good with that, it just is later, but we're okay with, we have secured funding that or we don't. And
Okay.
what that dollar amount at this point looks like. And I know that we're, yeah, anyway, I'll leave it at that. I know we're going to touch base on Monday, so maybe we could talk a little bit more then.
Yes, I
Okay.
guess I missed that piece. When did that turn into, because I remember there was an additional like 50,000 or something for the repair. When did that second unit become necessary to be replaced?
I think, and I'll let Brian speak, but I think from what I remember, it was something about when they came out to reassess the first part, then they realized maybe when they either started looking into it, they couldn't, the second part was not only a replace, and then Bob had already left,
Oh,
I think also, and I know that that was his specialty.
okay.
So
Okay.
I don't know, Brian, if
Yeah,
that
that's pretty
sounds about
accurate, and
right.
it's really beyond our scope.
Right.
Even with Bob here, it's beyond our scope.
Okay.
And unfortunately, as wonderful as that building looks, and it really does, the roof and some of the parts, if you will, the HVAC and components, they're pushing almost 20 years plus. So they're
More, 24 years now.
24 years.
Yeah,
So
2000.
and we've been working to maintain them, changing filters, oiling things and do maintenance. I don't get the impression that was done for the first 15 or 20 years consistently.
Well,
Not
also,
to
it's
anybody's
just-
fault, just it
No, no,
didn't
no.
happen.
But the strain on them now, I mean, every year it's warmer and warmer too.
Yes.
So I imagine what we thought their lifespan would be 24 years ago, the temperatures are also, so you're running them probably a
Correct.
lot more. So the wear and
So-
tear. Okay, Brian, so we'll
We'll
look for
touch
your
base on that.
update.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
on
I'll get
that,
that
and just
early
to
next
see,
week.
and then just while I'm thinking about it, we probably will need to probably pivot to get a budget subcommittee meeting probably on the books.
Next week. Yep.
Soon. So Mary, we can coordinate that offline
Sure.
as well. The Green Meadow School Building, I know that we've been getting this, since Wayne's here, this might not be the best time, but I just want to, before I forget, we've been getting reimbursements back from the project. And it would be helpful, Mary, where does that money go? Like, so we get these for the grant, are they going into a certain fund? Like how does that, do you know how that works? Or has that come up in you guys in the meetings? Because I was asking the other day with FinCom, because we got it, I think last month, there was an email about 200 and something $1,000, and I think it's toward it, but I don't know, like, is that just go to pay the expenses, like in a fund for that? So I just wasn't sure about that sequence of events.
And I'm not really sure either. I just know, anytime that an expense is coming up from anything having to do, for a while there, I was making sure that Wayne was,
Yeah.
keeping track of it before it went to the town. But now I'm not. But and I know it's delayed with MSBA refunding. So I don't know if the different companies just wait for that refund or how exactly.
I was wondering if that, I know we got approved in like December for that additional reimbursement, and I don't know if maybe that was part, like, like here's that additional, because you had to submit some other stuff to get that extra reimbursement because they changed the formula. So I didn't know if that had any impact at all, or we had started seeing that. So anyway, just if you can maybe at some point,
Yep.
because I think just because I'm the chair, I see these emails come through like reimbursement submitted, and I'm like, oh, okay. But where is that going at the town? And is it just going to a fund that offsets the expenses that we're billing against? Or is it somewhere that needs to be, allocated into another account somewhere that I haven't heard much about it. So,
I do know that both MVG and Colliers, at every meeting that we have for the school building committee, they have a copious spreadsheet of, what was budgeted, how much we've spent so far, and all of that.
Okay.
So all the numbers have been accounted for, but like you say, it's just a case of how the reimbursement itself happens.
yeah, it might just be like that offset, like it goes here and it, the expenses come out of there. And then Brian, just moving on, about the asbestos removal and those efforts, do we have on the website, I know we put some information there, do we have like a set folder? This might be more of a Colleen question, of the, like, just all the reports that come through, like the health and all that other stuff, because I know in the past the public has really wanted to have interest of just reading sometimes that information. And I know that we got you had put the highlights for us, but just the
Mhm.
document itself, I just want to make sure if anyone is looking for the actual document that they can look at it in its entirety, not just what we've segmented out. But I don't know if we have a place from the,
It's on the, I will check in the morning. I know Colleen posted it already, so that report is
okay.
there.
Yeah, because I know we had like the
Right.
notification last time and like there's a couple of things already, but if we, maybe we just need maybe we do like a new folder every year of like, because it seems like, a lot of this stuff is kind of like every year you have to do these statutory things or whatever. I don't know the best way to organize it, but I don't want it to get lost.
Folder, there is a folder for building and facility documents, and it's, the files are dated typically.
Okay, so if anyone
all there,
were, okay, so
under
if anyone wanted to
documents.
look at the raw, like the report or the
Mm-hmm.
results from the vendor, we can just direct them to that folder.
Yep,
And they
the
can,
district website.
the district website, got it. Thank you for confirming that.
Yep.
And I think that, and you said you were gonna send an email about those, the art thing for the students and that,
Yeah, I'll
and
take pictures
okay.
in the morning and send them.
Got it. That would be wonderful. Okay. I don't have any other questions for you there. I know we are now moving. Anything else with the MSBA, or that was just it? I saw that all the project stuff. That was it really, right? We didn't have a
Yep.
separate, okay. Okay, handbook. So I think Liz, this is the high school handbook. I think the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
Evening.
You should have a document in your folder that is the proposed changes to the Maynard High School Student Family Handbook. And our team we worked in the spring and then sort of via email over the summer to get all the language where we wanted it. And here it is. So the page order happens this year to be sort of an order of controversy. So we'll start with a student favorite, which is on page 21. Our students, since we arrived for the past 2 years, have asked us if juniors could have what we once called senior privilege extended to them as well in the second half of the year when many juniors are then driving and might be able, or on nice days could walk, to go out to lunch or go home. Many students go home. So we did a little pilot on our own with the new juniors who were inducted into National Honor Society in the spring and tried it out, and it worked fine. Their parents, of course, gave consent and we had no problems. So we want to honor this request of students. It's also something that goes on at many other high schools. It's not uncommon. And we'd like to change the name of it to upper class privilege. So now we would have seniors after term 1, or maybe earlier this year, if as a reward for being great about certain things we're asking them to do. National Honor Society juniors when they are inducted, and then all of the juniors would be eligible under the same guidelines, if that's all right. I didn't know, do you want me to stop after each topic?
I was actually just thinking it might be helpful just to kind of go section by section, because I know you've done a great job kind of outlining like the changes very nicely. So if that's okay, I'll go ahead and just give a pause on page about the upper class privileges, and I'll just kind of poll the school committee if anyone has any questions, clarifications, thoughts on this particular aspect. Mary?
No, I'm good with this. Yeah.
Okay. Hillary?
This is more of a curiosity, but I was just wondering how difficult it is to oversee this and manage which kids are eligible and which aren't, and if they have their privileges taken away, like, is that that seems like that'd be a hard thing to manage and negotiate and stuff, no?
I think it would be impossible in a big school. In a small school, it's just a conversation in the morning. You know, Sally B was late today. She's not going out for senior privilege. Liz, make a note of that before you go to lunch duty. And it's as simple as that. They use a QR code to check out
Oh.
of the building and check back in. They know if they come back late, they don't get to go the next day. It's a very long-standing, Mr. Karagianis had seniors doing it back in his day. And I think even preceding that, it's something they look forward to very much and they honor, and they don't want to lose their privilege, except maybe on the snowiest day.
Thank you.
Right.
Oh, and
Thank you.
many do take their free lunch. I didn't know if anyone would have a question about that, but many do grab their free lunch and then step out of the building. There's a lot of walk taking, which I
Well-
love and encourage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
It is. We're a walkable town, so I'm glad we're able to leverage that to our benefit, small and walkable.
And we used to do it in the old days and then come back. So I like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was reading an article today about attendance, and one school piloted letting kids go outside during lunch and participate in sports, and like basically gave high schoolers recess. And they had found that was the biggest, most effective way of increasing attendance at that school.
Yeah, we found that having lunchtime open gym has been tremendously helpful. They really look forward to it.
That's great.
And
Kind
the
of goes back to the
students know
whole like recess
calendar.
thing, huh? You know, like when kids
Yeah.
had recess and that.
Well, adults need recess too. It's not, it's a
Amen for
human
that.
need to move
Yeah.
during the day and to play.
Yeah. And to get time with their friends, like the things they care about.
Okay. Alexis, anything on this section?
No, not on this section.
Okay. Mauro, did I ask you? I don't think I did. Did you
You
have
did
anything on
not.
this section?
The question I have has more to do with whether or not one of the things that you had said was that it had been piloted last year with the National Honor Society for juniors, and that it went smoothly. But I guess what I'm wondering is what constitutes not going smoothly to the point that you would then take that privilege away for everybody?
Well, once it becomes school committee policy and you approve it and it's in the handbook, it isn't something we would take away for everybody. But not going smoothly would be more than one student not signing out, coming back late consistently. And the thing we're most afraid of, and I'm sure you are too, is just rushing in their cars. That's the number one worry Ms. Doktorov and I have when it comes to privilege for anyone. We would rather they come back late than rush and make a bad decision in a car. And we do communicate with them about that. And we just wonder sometimes if the 16-and-a-half-year-olds, you know, are ready. But our kids are such good kids, and it's just a shame to keep anyone or to keep the whole group back just because someone is not being responsible. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
And just thinking about, because the driving piece, I know that when kids get their license, the first, what is it, like 6 months or whatnot, they can't have friends in the car anyway. It really can only be family. So that might, you know, hopefully you don't have a lot of, you know, that happening, but it is a good point to consider. You know, again, being a walkable town, you know, a lot of people walking around and rushing, that would be a recipe. But I appreciate the emphasis on a privilege too. You know, privileges are earned, and then they can also be, you know, with safety issues. I would imagine that would be an area we would have to reassess if it's not going well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we all keep an eye, including the school resource officer, on the how many students are in a car question.
The QR code thing, that was intriguing to me, how that I hadn't realized that that's how it was, but that's that. Oh, great. Like, let's leverage technology when we can. So,
Yep. And phones are still allowed at lunch, so we'll still be able to do it.
okay. All right, so now we are going to move on to page 25. I see that I'll give this back to you about academic dishonesty.
We haven't changed any language here. We just changed where in the handbook this section is, because there are no discipline consequences for academic dishonesty, only academic consequences. And we want to be very clear that when students make behavioral mistakes, we reteach there are consequences, but they're never academic consequences. So, but when students make an academic dishonesty, that's something different, and there can be academic consequences. So we moved it.
Okay. A question about the academic dishonesty. I know, and this might be where I thought in one of our school policies, there was, and maybe it isn't related to academic dishonesty, but with someone, I guess it relates to academic performance, that they would not be eligible for participation in extracurricular activities or anything to that effect from a disciplinary perspective or a more punitive approach in that regard. Is that
That is not something I would recommend.
okay?
Any kind of a connection between behavioral consequences and academic consequences. I think we're much safer from a statutory point of view, keeping the two very separate. It's very clear that we're supposed to not have academic penalties for behavioral stuff, and we're not supposed to have behavioral penalties for academic misconduct.
Oh, wait, maybe I'm misunderstanding. So if a student has academic dishonesty, let's just say they're copying information or whatever that might be. I guess what I was asking, and maybe this is that there's not a punitive
That's correct.
aspect, no punitive aspect to that. So if they are doing something that it's intentionally academically dishonest, they would not have any type of penalties or disciplinary action to remove them for any other. Okay.
Yeah, that's the current 2024 thought on the matter.
Okay. Is that new from, I know there's like this, is that just a new approach just in general, or because I vaguely remember Mary, for some reason, Mary, I'm thinking about you because I know this came up about academics and participation in sports. Like I know you had asked a question, I think it was a policy question. And I thought that's why I'm trying to make sure that our other policies written other places.
If you're
Oh.
failing, if you fail one or two classes, you cannot participate in sports.
That's an MIAA policy.
Okay.
If we want to participate in their tournaments, we're required to follow their handbook.
Okay, so maybe, I guess, just trying to make sure that we're kind of covering all that consideration. That's what I was trying to understand, like where that would invoke. Is there a place, or would it be suggested in this section to just say, like, just a little caveat, unless, other requirements, like because if somebody fails a subject or whatever that might be because of academic dishonesty, there still is a potential punitive measure if for MIA purposes, right?
They would have to fail too. Students
Okay.
are still eligible if they fail one class.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we're not
And we do
undercutting
have that
separate
elsewhere.
policy.
We have that elsewhere in the handbook.
Okay, can we cite that just as a reference, maybe, just so we're aligning that
Certainly.
this doesn't, there's still that piece, that there's not
Yes.
necessarily, no, there is some level of punitive measure, but it relates to more MIA, and there is that. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Mary, did you have anything on this section?
Nope, nothing.
Okay, Mauro?
Yes, so going back to the not being punitive, there is punitive consequences to academics, if you're tardy or absent.
No,
Because-
that's just credit. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
We do not take grades, we only take credit. And we have about 7 different ways for the students to earn it back. So no one at the end is actually, we never change a grade, and we make sure that they get their credit back. It usually just means they have to go to Saturday school to earn back their credit, but no grades are ever changed. If a student did nothing and had no credit, it would still, the good grade they earned would still be on their transcript. We do not change any grades or alter their academics.
Okay.
So what does that, can you explain what that means a little bit?
Yeah, I'm
Like
stumped. I'm a
losing
little bit.
credit but keeping the grade? I sort of thought
Credit-
those being the same thing.
So in high school, just as in college, we earn credit for every class we pass, and students have to have a certain number of credits in different areas. In order to graduate, they need 110 credits to graduate, so they can fail quite a few classes. Most students never fail any. But they can, so the students know if it happens to a senior and it's in a class, they lose credit in a class they need for graduation, they will jump all the hoops, go to a Saturday school or stay after on a half day, earn back that credit and get what they need to graduate. But some students who sort of skirt that may actually have a transcript that shows I got an A in art, no credit, but they didn't need that credit to graduate. It's hard
So
to
is there-
explain.
Yeah. So basically they're two
someone who
different,
doesn't live
they're
it.
two different like concepts,
Yes.
like the credit for a class versus the grade. If you
Anything
got like,
over 60 gets a credit.
okay, so you can also lose credit based on grades,
Yes.
but not like that, it doesn't have the impact vice versa.
But back in the day, when we did tardy policies, we used to say you failed for attendance and give students
Mhm.
an F. That is gone. No one
Right.
does that anymore. Students get to keep the grades they earn. So that
Ah.
was why, Mauro, I said it's not really an academic penalty.
Okay.
It's more of a technicality than anything.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And
So
then
you
another,
earned the grade. Oh, I'm sorry. But if you've
And-
earned, just so I can follow, if you've earned that grade, basically, we're not taking that what you've earned away.
that would
when
be
you
wrong.
yes, absolutely. When you said it that way, I think for
Yeah.
me, it kind of made more sense that we're not
Is
gonna.
that, is that explained well in the handbook? Because
Yes.
okay, I'm gonna have to go reread that because that was not what I got from when I read it, the last time I read it.
Yeah, me neither. I definitely didn't get that.
Yeah.
It really doesn't affect too many students. We usually have
Well, good.
maybe 10 involved when we do credit appeals. And then some get them excused because they had some strange circumstance. And then others get Saturday school, sadly.
How much Saturday school do they need to, is it a time, like an hour for hour equivalent for what they've missed?
I think it's 3 sessions currently,
Mhm.
and they can work on anything for the teacher.
Okay.
And we also have computerized assignments they can do that are tied to their practicing for their SATs. So we have lots they can do during that time.
Alexis?
I actually had a question about the academic dishonesty, the violations that you have. It's the first time I'll be honest, it's the first time I've read the policy. So it talks about, and I understand the reasons why the verbiage is the way it is, where it says may result in a 0, may result in a possible failure. And I do understand that. However, my question has to do with, is that consequence where it may result in a 0 or may result in a possible failure up to the decision of the teacher? And
Yes.
if so, how is there equity and parity amongst the teaching staff so that one teacher isn't harsher to students than another, or harsher to a group of students versus another, should these violations come about?
I guess there's nothing in writing that would prevent that. But in practice, the school counselors, the principal, the parents are always involved. And uniformly, my experience with teachers, not only in Maynard, but also in other districts, has been if it was clearly a mistake, the teachers allow the student to make it up, usually for a lower grade. And if it was deliberate and the student, compounds the problem with untruthfulness and trying to hide the fact, and, that's when, on a first offense, almost never, but if it's a subsequent violation, they might do the 0. Teachers aren't harsh generally. And if they are, the school counselors usually tell me.
Okay, so
I can get involved.
So
there's checks and balances.
And that was my concern. Is there checks and balances in this system where the student and the family potentially have some recourse per se, if a teacher is being a little too harsh with what type of violation they are giving out for what actually happened?
Yeah, I would say the school counselor is the system of checks and balances. They get involved. And if a teacher is grading to a certain student too harshly as well, it will be the school counselor who would ring that alarm bell.
Okay. All right.
If the parent doesn't, the parent, the school counselor is that advocate sort of in the building beside the student. Many, many parents pick up the phone, which we very much appreciate.
Yep. And then I do have a question about the tardy policy. I don't know if we've sort of like mushed them together.
Oh, shall we move? Do you want me to move into tardiness?
Can I just ask one thing about still on this one? It might be a suggestion with this where it says subsequent violation may result in the possible failure of a term and or the course. Maybe to put an example, the student would still get a B, but they would get 0 credits toward that 110. Just because, like Mauro says, it's a little not really clear.
That's not what would happen in a case of academic dishonesty.
Oh, I thought that's what we
the student
saying.
Would actually fail.
Okay. I thought we were saying that they'd still get their earned grade.
We had jumped around to excessive absence.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess I was still
and loss of credit.
Okay. So they'd still get the lesser grade and obviously not the credit. Okay.
Yeah. And we haven't had that someone failing for the term or failing the course.
Okay. All right.
I wonder if for the subsequent violation, it would be helpful to add may result in a possible failure for the assignment, the term, or the course. Because where you were saying if the first violation was an accident, the second violation could in theory be the assignment.
Got it. Thank you.
Just if that's the case. It sort of sounded like that might have been the case.
Yep, that's absolutely true. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are moving on now to page 28, the tardiness. And did I miss anybody? Hold on, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody, right? Because I'm trying to juggle my screens as well. And just before you hop in, Liz, I know that you heard a lot of the public comments that I fall within some of this section, this page, and then page 29. I
Yep,
think.
page
And then-
29.
Yeah, I don't see like that particular part addressed here, but can you,
It has
can-
not been changed.
right, can you speak? I think we're obviously going to probably have some questions about that part that's not in this little handout for us to look at. So maybe just speak to the tardiness part, and then we can kind of have the school committee, talk more about that, page 29 as well, the
Sure.
CPR. Okay.
Sure. So the faculty approved a change to the tardiness procedures, still within state law and allowable. Previously, it was 3 unexcused tardies of less than 30 minutes, and the students advocated for 4 unexcused tardies less than 20 minutes. So they offered to sort of give back 10 minutes and get to school sooner, but be able to do it one more time without it causing an absence. And the faculty, it was extremely contentious, but the faculty eventually agreed that, again, it's just something small that the students advocated for that doesn't really change much instructionally. The first 20 minutes of class, especially first block, people are often sort of rolling out the day, taking attendance. Not that that time doesn't count, but that, if a student misses 4 of them, a teacher can probably live with it over a 90-day semester.
There was a presentation, I think last year. This is ringing a bell, Mara, when we went to do our outreach. I want to say
Yes.
that was
Yep.
one of a presentation, and there was a little bit of, back and forth Q&A regarding the student advocating for that. So it's really great to see how we've landed with that here. So on this particular aspect of the tardiness policy, before not the CRI, we'll go back to that, but I just wanted to just do a roundabout. So Mara, did you have any questions on the part that was shared for editing or
No, I did not.
updating? Okay. Mary, did you?
My only concern, but I guess Liz has addressed it, is my thought was that the students were losing 20 minutes of a core curriculum out of a 45-minute class, but that now you said that that's not the case. It's really just check in and
Well,
that
it's 20 instead of 30.
But the problem for me is that it's 20 minutes of class time that, that's a lot of class time. But if you're saying that that really isn't class time,
Oh,
I'm
well,
okay.
in my classroom, it's class time.
Right, that's what
But-
I'm, I understand the students in that, but to me, it's 20 minutes out of 45 minutes that the students aren't going to be there numerous times to get the full crux of a class.
And that's why it can lead to credit loss.
Okay, I'm not happy
Let-
about it myself, but I just feel like it's a little loosey-goosey, and I know there was a lot of conversation in that, but we need these kids to be in class to learn the whole class, so.
Oh, you are singing my song, Mary.
I
Thank you.
know.
So Liz, just to kind of follow up on that, was that similar to the feedback that teachers, the concerns that were raised? Can you share a little bit more about some of that, if that
Well,
aligns with the
Mary
concerns?
just captured it perfectly.
Okay,
The teachers who, like me in my English class, who take attendance while students are writing because we don't waste 1 minute, you object to the idea that, one more is going to be allowed before it counts as an absence. But other teachers, one teacher said, I myself have struggled with lateness all my life, and this tardy policy would have been really hard for me. And I can understand why teenagers who have so much trouble getting up in the morning are really struggling to get to school on time at such an early hour. Other districts are starting later. Let's give the kids this one more tardy. And, they voted, and not everyone voted in favor of the change.
and
but
that's the part that you reminded me that was mentioned about the start time of school, where Maynard's start time has been a little bit more on the earlier side, and other schools have adjusted for those teenager, later, and that particular population tends to be up later and all of that. Not that I am pro or for, but I just remember that that was part of that presentation that the student gave as a reasoning of why it can be difficult in the morning.
One of the other things that the students put in their presentation was the fact that most of the tardies were really only like between 5 and 10 minutes, not
The full time.
and that's counting as a tardy when really they're making it, and they're really not missing more than, which is why they brought the timing down to 20 instead of 30.
Yeah, and they brought data as well to show that the vast majority of tardies and dismissals are really quite a short period of time and don't stretch to that 20.
Does that help, Mary, at all?
Yes,
Or
yeah, no, I'm more encouraged by that.
There's not as much loss. It's not the full 20 loss.
Right.
Okay, good.
I'm
Hillary?
of the
Oops, sorry.
thought process. No, that's okay. I'm of the thought process that if we did start the day later, the kids would go to bed later. It's just nature of the beast. So that's where I come in.
Well, the good thing with this policy is that once it's approved, if it doesn't work for a year, we can always revert back.
Yeah,
So
if you could come back to us with that, Liz, that would be great next
yeah,
year.
for next year, how
Absolutely.
did it work for a year, and let the students know, hey, this is a privilege that we're kind of launching school wide, but it's really on their shoulders too.
Ms. Doctoroff tracks this data, as does the state, down to the minute. And it is encouraging. We are doing better.
It's great.
So
Hillary?
My instinct was the same thing Mary said, but I really like the fact that the kids, brought data and brought it forward and were able to have the discussion and make an impact. I think is really important for their, advocacy skills and feeling buy-in to the whole process. One thing that might help Mary is I know my child has claimed when I'm yelling, school is starting right now, you have to get in the car. She's come back to me with, well, if I'm already going to get a tardy, can I just go do X, Y, and Z? And so shortening that time, I think will help. I think this would help that to some extent. Like, you still got to get there fast because it's going to turn into an absence. So overall, I support this.
Hey, Alexis?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding it. For unexcused tardies, less than 20 minutes are equivalent to one excused absence for an entire day.
no,
The
one
class.
Okay, so
unexcused.
that's where I feel like there's a word missing, because the next sentence says if students are more than 20 minutes late to a class, they will be considered absent in that class. So I'm trying to understand the difference between the two. That's why I'm wondering if there was supposed to be something after equivalent to one excused absence from what? Is it from the class?
From the class.
Easily
Is it from the
added.
class that they're missing? Okay.
Right.
Because
I
was-
consider this is almost like a workshopping conversation because you're people who haven't looked at it 1,000 times.
Yes.
And I'm happy to add phrases and commas and
Yeah,
Well,
I
because
just,
it's under
for
tardy
my
to
part-
school and tardy in there's two different sections, right? So that's
Yep.
probably where
Yeah.
it looks like tardy to school, all that is really about tardy to school, but
right,
we really don't want to confuse any readers.
yeah. Because I was concerned that if they have excessive tardiness and it turns into an unexcused absence, then it goes against how many unexcused absences they're allowed to have over the course of a year. So I thought there was much more of a domino effect in that regard, based upon how I read that one sentence.
right.
Thank you.
Alright. I don't have any, I think, questions about this beyond what has been asked. So thank you for your work on this. But I wanted to introduce, before we move on to the other stuff, because it seems more germane to this section, the feedback that we've gotten from the community, and just to open that up for the school committee. I did have a couple of clarifying questions about that CRA approach that was outlined. And I remember this came up in a school committee meeting before, and some people were understandably uneasy with the approach, but from my recollection or from my understanding, what aspects are statutory versus what aspects are subjective based on administration's decision to pursue?
So that's the perfect question. Thank you. If you look at the top of page 29, the first sentence comes directly from the statute and is common to Massachusetts school handbooks. We need to have the CRA in our toolbox for the very extreme situations where either a student will not cooperate with the family and then the school and the family go together, or when a family will not cooperate after the 10 steps that come before a CRA. So we don't need to have that second sentence. It's supposed to make it sound a little friendlier. And it was clear from the community feedback to me that we need a sentence that says the school administration will work collaboratively with school support staff, the school resource officer, and community services to avoid CRA at all costs. We need that sentence because that's the truth.
Okay, so if I look at page 28, the CRA section, it's the first paragraph. Of that section, there is, you reserve the right. Is that some type of statutory, like, is that which is like, is the authority
Yes.
given to the school? That
That's
any
the
school can,
statutory sentence, yes.
that's the statutory, that the school reserves the right to work with a, so if I take that back, that's the kind of language that maybe we can't change because that's the law. If I want to just understand what we can, potentially address versus what maybe we can't. So school administration reserves the right to work with school resource officer and the family on a CRA assistance petition to the juvenile court if a student is absent more than 8 times in a term and is under the age. So is that 8 times in a term also
Yes.
written
Statute.
into the statute?
So
Okay.
students who are absent 8 days of a semester, which is 90 days, are considered chronically absent. Students who are absent 8 days out of 45 days, which is the term or the quarter, are considered by the state at high risk for not earning a high school diploma. And those are students for whom interventions are needed. And those concerns from the citizens mentioned just about all the different kinds of problems that a family can be going through that might lead to excessive absenteeism. And so I jotted down, if it's okay for me to share, just some of the steps we would take before, if a student is absent 8 times out of that one term, 45 days, that we would be taking as a team. So the person is twice the rate of chronic absenteeism. The school counselor would bring the student's case to what we call BBST, which is part of our MTSS, our multi-tiered
building-based support
systems.
team.
Yep, of support, and start looking into the student record to see if there ever has been an educational plan or an intervention of any kind. We would talk with the school psychologist. We would talk with the school resource officer and her partner in crime, which is the police department's social worker, Emily Black, who is an incredible resource to our community. And we would also talk to the probation officer. he is a known team member and someone who has access to the Family Resource Center in Framingham, which is a source of services that are available to families, and families don't have to go through the court to access them. We also have partners at Elliott Associates who provide school-based counseling. We have a family team, an intervention team that can go into the home, and we will work with the family on any and all of these measures. If homelessness is involved, we have so many different tools, and absenteeism tied to homelessness doesn't count as unexcused. It would immediately be excused, and the team would start supporting immediately. Everything comes into play.
All right. I want to just thank you for sharing that. I want to open the floor for the school committee to
Could I
ask
just say
questions. Oh, sure.
one
Sure.
more last thing? So something we do occasionally is what we call a diversion. And that is when all of the players come into the room with the family, but we don't go to court, which would be Framingham Juvenile Court. And the probation officer does come, but just as a citizen, as a helper person who knows services. And we have done that on more than one occasion and come up with a plan to avoid court. And often we'll let the parent Zoom in or Google Meet in, because we don't want parents missing work in
Right.
these very sensitive situations. And we
So-
know court can cost a day of work.
With that new information, because could we invoke that as a requirement first before a CRA? And why would that not be?
Because every case is different, I wouldn't be comfortable putting all the 8 bullet points that I came up with down as a requirement in every case. There is very, very rarely a case where everyone in the team. Oh, and one final step is we talk to the district's council before we file a CRA. So we actually talk to a lawyer. We talk to Brian, we talk to the special ed director, and we talk to a lawyer before we ever go to court.
What
And
is,
there are
some
rare
data?
cases
Sorry,
where
I
we
just
think
want
we need to go to court quickly.
do we have any data on how many CRAs we have done?
We've done 3 in the past 2 years.
3 in the
One-
past 2 years.
And one was in partnership with the family. The second was diverted at the clerk's desk, and an agreement was come to. The parents had not been willing to agree to anything, and they agreed when everyone met in the lobby at court and never went in. And the third one, was granted by the court. And it was a very complicated situation. We
Yeah, I
had
don't wanna-
legal counsel.
Yep. Hillary, I just want to go, Hillary,
And
questions?
the family has taken over the first CRA. When their child turned 16, the family continued it. We were partners through the entire process.
Okay.
This
you,
is
Liz.
delicate work.
No, I know it's a lot of feelings, and I just want to respect the process. And as a non-educator for myself, I'm just asking the
For
questions that come to
safety
mind
reasons,
yeah, and I don't want you to go into too many details
I
about it.
wouldn't. But
Yeah,
for safety reasons, I need to reserve the right to take a situation to court if all my advisors agree and the lawyer agrees. We need to be able to do that quickly and not have to go through an 8-step process. That
Hillary?
has not happened here.
Okay.
I obviously passionately disagree with this. As a foster parent, I've seen the harm that comes from the court system and DCF being involved with families. And this past about 6 months ago, I listened to a hearing at the State House about banning CREs altogether. Like, there's a lot of advocacy to just remove the whole entire process from existence. And it was hours and hours of testimony that was heartbreaking. both from families talking about how they were told that this was a way to access services and that this was the last resort, and then their lives were destroyed, their children's lives were destroyed. They were now adults, like 20, 30 years old, coming back and saying that their lives were ruined, their families' lives were ruined by the school filing a CRA because of attendance. And then there was hours of testimony by experts who work in the juvenile justice system and in the mental health system, who talked about how a lot of people portray CRAs as a way to access services, and that there is not a single service that's available to a child that under a CRA that's not available already. That may to some extent have been the case 20 years ago, but now between Mass Health and the behavioral health, the community behavioral health centers, that's really not the case. And that even without the CRA process, if a school feels like a child is truly being neglected or unsafe at home, or there's something like seriously safety-wise wrong at home, they are statutorily bound to the 51A process. So there's another mechanism to handle those cases where a child's at harm. Additionally, I looked at the data from 2020 to 2023 for the CRAs filed by Maynard, and it was heartbreaking to me. One of the requirements, I believe starting in 2018 for a CRA, is that they're only allowed to be filed if the school can prove that the child is willfully absent. And a lot of people describe that as basically the child is playing hooky. Like they weren't absent because they weren't comfortable. They weren't absent because they were bullied. They weren't absent because they didn't feel like they could do school, or because they have trouble getting to school, or because they felt sick when they wanted to go to school, or they didn't have clean clothes. Like there was no legitimate reason for them to not go to school. They were just not going to school because they would rather do something more fun. And considering that in those 3 years of data, 42% of the kids were minorities, 67% of the kids had IEPs, and 83% of the kids were low income, that doesn't seem like that's a willful playing hooky type of a situation. And we're taking a process that's so inherently harmful to families and applying it in such a discriminatory and hurtful manner that, like, as much as I love so much of this handbook, and I think so much of what the teachers and the staff are doing are great, I can't vote for a handbook that includes destroying families, even if it's one a year, given these stats and the other options available. We have this attendance, we have all these other resources, and I'm totally open to the idea that there could be scenarios I'm not understanding that require this, except between talking to DCF staff, DYS staff, probation staff, the mental health staff, the PPAL staff, families who have gone through CRAs, families whose children, like I saw one parent was remarking that sure, CRAs improve attendance, but that's because their kid gets locked up in residential and they have to go attend schools in their locked facility. I think the risk is so significant for basically no benefit that I ethically, I can't agree with it.
Hillary, thanks for sharing that. Mary?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it too, Hillary, because you come from a different background and have seen, how the system does not work. And we, we've had enough cases where DCF didn't do their due diligence, and it was seriously impacted kids, especially. I get my question is, where originally I was thinking, oh, I missed a page that the language had changed, and that's why we received letters from parents, but that's not the case. So I'm wondering, these families, did they hear about a bad situation that had happened in Maynard, and that's why they were all being vocal, or?
No, last year I had talked about to a couple of friends how frustrated I was at the handbook having this piece. And I had said these same types of comments last year at this meeting. And I had told a couple friends last night that I was frustrated that it's still in there, and that we keep having more education and information about how harmful this is. And I don't know how to be effective at changing this. And I tend to have some activist friends. So it's
okay. I
only knew one of the people who emailed, but I told one person who told somebody else. And I think throughout the course of the day, many people on Maynard are very active about social causes. And so hearing about this. It's so counter to what so many of our community believe in.
I think
Um,
the foster care, like foster parent community is particularly in Maynard is also, you know, and I know a couple of people and they actually, someone who I know who didn't email but has raised this as a concern, who is a different group. But Mary,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have
I
any
guess
other
the
questions.
bottom line, it's very consistent throughout, and I don't know what the right answer is because it does sound as though, Liz, as though you're doing everything that you can possibly do to not get these students into the court system, and that's the bottom line is, you know, once they get in the court system, we lose them.
And
we-
I'm happy to add a sentence or two, making clear the different interventions that are tried before, but not, I wouldn't use the word that it's required for us to try those because every situation is different.
Right,
But
what about something along the lines of, you know, we will attempt to try, you know, the school department will try, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things, or may try, you know, this list of things to do. The last resort part, like, you know, taking into consideration the situation is this.
yes,
Like not a requirement to necessarily do things that aren't appropriate for the situation, but the requirement to do everything you can other than a CRA
right.
for that situation.
Right. And I can't speak for other schools, but I would never bring a CRA if if probation and social workers and family services and everyone hadn't tried first and told me those are the advisors that I trust to let me know when it does need to happen.
Right. And I guess the fact that you were saying, you know, there's been 3 CRAs in the last 2 years. Well, one
From
was
the high school.
From the high school, right? But one was with a family that went collectively. So they had tried everything and they needed this, you know, in order to help their child. So.
And it continues to this day.
Right. So maybe Hillary, you could help Liz do another sentence that would, you know, that would make you feel comfortable, because that, to me, that's it. Just anything we can do to keep these kids away from the court.
Yeah.
I do think there's certainly opportunity because it feels like such a small section, but really it's big impact. So I don't like that it maybe like, you know, it does feel like, not to say buried. I mean, it has its own, but it's like, you know, 4 lines compared to you have all these other sections about tardiness that are a lot more extensive. But this has more, you know, a lot more like court legal implications that I think are worthy of, you know, highlighting a little bit more of our due diligence and, you know, emphasizing that. So it doesn't feel like we're just, this is the process and then moving on, you know. I think it feels void of a little bit more of what you're saying that probably happens, but sometimes just codifying those efforts in some way that lets people know that it isn't just, we're just after 8, we're gonna, you know, automatically file, right? Because when you read it very high level, it does feel a little bit like it's 8 and then boom, right? And I think that's the impression probably where it feels like very like automatic and just, you know, without and then I don't know, that's not it. So I don't want to underestimate it, all the effort behind the scenes, but what you're saying here and all the work is not really reflective in that passage at all. So however we can, you know, emphasize and without, you know, hamstringing your, you know, your other options, I would, you know, kind of maybe pose that back to kind of revisit that in some way. Because I think if, you know, if this helps one kid, you know, great. But to Hillary's point, if it hurts one family and that's perpetual, that's something that's hard for me to, you know, to sit with as well. And I feel like we just owe the community a little bit more understanding of what that due diligence that happens.
Even that paragraph by itself is traumatic for families who have experienced DCF and DYS.
Yeah.
Like reading that, you know, I know someone else who read the policy and called me when they got to that page and said, "Are you kidding me? We can't do this." And they totally freaked out and panicked. And they're like, "I don't feel safe sending my kid to school. Should I homeschool?" Like that. And they're good parents. They're really good parents. But
it can be jarring if you have traumatic experience with any part of that process. So I want to, that's a very good point to recognize. as well. I just want to make sure, Mauro, I'm going to go Mauro and then I'm going to go to Alexis.
So right now, we have to have this section because the state has it. Is that what I'm understanding?
I think what I'm maybe is, I think it is a recommendation that the state allows schools to pursue. And from how I read the text, the school is leveraging that authority. Like they're saying this is our, like, as Liz said, this is a tool in our toolbox that we reserve the right to use under certain circumstances. I don't think it requires.
I like the words "as a last resort."
Yeah, I think the way it says 8, and then it kind of, that feels, that's what I was asking earlier on, is that statutory that we have, 8 triggers the sequence of events, and
Yeah.
that's what I think we need to like work in that area somehow.
Yeah,
because
the feedback we got was very thoughtful and really opened my eyes to how harmful that paragraph could be without revision.
I think that potentially listing some of the other things that are options can both help families feel like there is support available at the school and potentially suggest or spark conversation. As opposed to feeling like they could reach out with concerns about their child's attendance without fear of initiating something like this and say, I think it's great that you have this resource available. Can you bring my kid up and talk to the team about my kid and how I can help get them to school on time? Or like it may just help parents feel like there's more of a team and they can collaborate more. Because some of the things you say sound great, but it's not in here in this particular spot.
Mauro, did you have any other questions on that?
No, I think I'm good, as long as we are making changes, because I can see how, this could, if you're just reading this, like what Hillary said, if you're just reading this, it sounds really like there's no working with a family. It's basically you're going right to the worst case scenario. So, if we can change the wording to help kind of allay some fears, and that we're actually following through on trying our best to work through situations. And yeah, I understand each case is different because each, student is different. So that would be great. Thank you.
Also, Liz, as an aside, if I remember correctly, Chuck Karajanis and Janet, the nurse, they've done home visits to students, right? To try and encourage them and say they really wanted it at school. So, I mean, right from the get-go, they were trying to encourage them to, to come to school. Is that still going on?
Yes, we still do that.
Yeah,
I left
they
that.
do.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
I left that off my list.
Yeah,
Take
so,
home visits.
right.
Alexis? Oh, you're muted.
She's
Sorry.
muted.
Sorry, I do it all the time. So most of what I had concerns about has been discussed, because it talks about it's not punitive. It's even written in there. It is not punitive, but it actually is very punitive. And so I had grave concerns about this section, because listening to how you talk about it, it feels as though the procedure and the policy are two very different things, and that they're working against each other. And so to me, I would be much happier if that additional language was added of, here are all the things, that include but are not limited to, we can do all of these things with students and families before we even go through this process, that this might kick off these procedures and these interventions that we're doing. But I would also be very comfortable, and I think more comfortable, we have BIT teams at colleges, which are very similar at a high school level, but anybody can report to a BIT team on a student. And so I would like a mechanism where it's not just the absence, but a parent or a teacher or somebody can report so that a partnership is created.
Yeah, we
And
do.
add that into this procedure and make it known that we have this process, and you as a parent or you as a faculty member have the right, as if you are concerned, then we want to work with you, and we are building this into our procedure and our policy.
Got it. Thank you. You're absolutely right.
Can I say something else too?
Yes.
So one thing I'm wondering, not for in the handbook, but in terms of when this process is underway and you're having these meetings with the SRO and the probation and everything, would it be possible to, have as an item on that agenda, how is this student a member of a protected class, and is that in any way biasing our decisions here? And I don't know, I know this is something that different social services groups are trying to do when they're assessing a kid and like say, okay, they're from this minority group, these are the cultural differences, like in what like to probably horribly ineffectively, but in an attempt to see what way biases could be impacting things. Because I'm really concerned that the data is showing so much bias in Maynard with these. And I don't know how that specifically can be addressed, but maybe if in the discussion it could be brought up and like, if a huge number of the kids are low income, what specific to the low income situation is contributing to this? Or is there a way that you can kind of look into that as the course of this year goes on? And
The school council, that is already done in BBST. That's part of
Yeah.
the school counselor's mission, and part of their association is to always boil down the data and make sure if we're talking about a student who's in a class or in a group that is just not part of the majority in our school, that's right out on the table and that we're examining it.
So then why do you think there is such huge bias in the number of CRAs in Maynard? Like, how can we, because if this is a hurtful process and it's being applied in a discriminatory manner, how can we make it less discriminatory?
I think that's another whole meeting. I have theories and thoughts, but it's not my area of expertise. It's something I'm curious about. But
Yeah.
I mean, why do we have achievement gaps?
Yeah.
By everything we've done. And why are we again this year, starting off our year, thinking about how do we narrow these gaps? And why are these same groups coming up over and over again? I want to fix it. I don't want to admire the problem any longer.
Yeah.
I want tools and I want to fix it.
I
One
love
thing was in
that
the
phrasing that you
Oh.
just said, sorry, about I
Yeah.
don't want to admire the problem anymore, because I
Yeah.
think just from a school committee perspective, sometimes that does feel like, I know we've talked about like our data that we just get, and then we're like, what do we do? How do we address that? So sorry, I just wanted to
Yeah.
take a moment to appreciate
My last
that.
thing was really short. It was just in the same Boston Globe article this morning. One thing that a school said they did was they bought a Chevy Suburban that was available for school staff if the kids missed the bus and they were not willing or able to get to school by any other means. They could call the school and a teacher would drive this SUV and pick them up. And they found that there were a lot, which makes sense, because if a kid doesn't really like going to school and they miss the bus, if they don't have some family at home that's going to drive them, they may be willing to go if they have a ride, but not willing to go if they have to walk 2 miles. And I
So
thought that was
I'm
creative.
laughing because I keep proposing, half jokingly, Mrs. York's Happy Bus. I think we should buy an old bus painted
Sounds like a
black
party
and
bus. I don't know. People could get confused what kind of bus that is.
put big smileys on it, and I'll just drive and pick up all our cherubs and bring them to school. Maybe
I
in
think that
retirement,
there's so
that'll
many
be my
ways
mission.
that could be helpful, not just getting the kids to school, but that relationship and the talking in the car and knowing that someone will show up. And
I had one more question, and I know we have to move on. We have a couple other sections in this, but just to kind of close out and reflect, I know the special education component. I just wanted to make sure that to emphasize that as
Yes.
well,
Part of the
because
process.
yeah, I do know that that just knowing families that a lot of times the school refusal is an aspect, that's triggered in anxiety or when they feel like they're behind. I actually remember the first time I went to the high school, um, a school council meeting where they had a student representative that sits on there. And this was talking about a plan a couple years ago when we thought we had to submit a plan to the state. And that student shared their personal, a reason why students refuse is because of anxiety, because they're concerned about perception and they can't read and they're coming into ninth grade maybe. And their skills are at that level. So in hearing the feedback that was shared, I know an email about considering, IEPs and whatnot. I think that is a really other aspect of school refusal that's related to a lot of special education children or children who maybe haven't been diagnosed officially, but clearly might need some supports in that regard as well. And I would hate for that to see that, those folks going down the rabbit hole of a CRA. When a parent doesn't have help, but they don't want to have their child go through the justice system necessarily. So I just want to move on. If
Well,
anyone,
can we just, so just circle back. So what's the takeaway here? So Liz, you're going to rework and then come back to us, maybe
well, we're gonna have the whole other sections we have to go through, and then I figured at the end we would
oh,
kind
all
of
right, okay.
talk about. We still have.
I meant specifically this one because this is this has brought up so much discussion, but
Oh,
I know
okay.
you have to get the handbook out to parents and caregivers.
I do.
Yeah, but that's why I was just asking what the takeaway is from this specific section.
Maybe let's hold that, Mary, because I just
Okay.
want to make sure, because I don't know the other sections, like what updates they have. And we
All right.
have, I saw at the end, there's like cell phone policies. I think that might have some, I don't know, some thoughts
Okay.
or whatever. But I think next steps is definitely something I want to make sure we're touching on. So Liz, if we're okay, if we can go back to what you prepared, you had page 36, the technology.
Yep.
Expectations.
If you want to take a look at page 36, there's just a little bit of rewording in there. We talked about not streaming videos, video games, social media in classes. That's been a bit of a problem on our Chromebooks. And that's something we're going to be taking more of a look at as we try to increase academic engagement. And we added AI.
Got it.
The next section, page 56, we added language clearly stating that families who are qualified for free and reduced lunch do not need to pay class dues, do not need to pay activity fees. And we had already had language about other financial hardships. We take care of our families at Maynard High School, and if they let us know, we find a way that they can afford what they need to afford. And we do want to continue to encourage families to fill out the free and reduced lunch application so that they can qualify for lots of different programs. College Board has lower test fees, etc.
Okay. Before we go on to the last part of it, just the phone piece, just want to make sure if anyone has any questions on, Colleen, I see Colleen has her hand raised.
We cannot accept food applications this year because we qualify for CEP. We are working on a waiver form that is similar and goes by the same guidelines.
What is
Perfect.
CEP? I'm sorry, what is it?
It's they lowered the percentage. Used to be 40%, you had to be 40% free or reduced based off of the federal list, the state list.
Okay, yeah.
They reduced that to 25 and we are at
Excellent.
28. So, but this is besides the state giving everyone free lunches. We qualify, like in the past, some districts qualified to have free lunch for everyone. This year we qualified, therefore we cannot accept lunch applications.
So will you still be able to do, like, in the past, if someone automatically qualified, you would send the letter saying they qualify? Because I know those letters in and of themselves help people qualify for other things.
If they ask, we would send one out
Okay.
because we
Excellent.
can't accept applications. Yeah.
I know the College Board will need those.
Thank you, Colleen. Mauro, any questions about the technology piece or that section about the fees? No?
No.
Okay. Mary, anything about technology fees?
No,
section?
just about about the fees. So is there maybe like a generous where we can't take the applications and that, is there some, is it part of maybe the initial packet that goes out that says, if you qualify, these are the other benefits that, that you'll be able to get? Can we do something like that, Colleen, or? how
The
do we-
waiver form that will be
Yeah,
available for
right.
anyone who enters
Rather
an
than
activity.
Right, rather than having people have to be proactive because I wouldn't have known, I didn't realize that that would allow you the college, the college application and that kind of thing. So I guess if there's a way that we can make people aware, since we don't have the other correspondence.
Yeah, maybe
A
the
noti-
like blind copy.
Notice
like
already went out.
someone- Oh,
Oh, it
there you
did.
go.
Perfect.
All
Thank you.
parents.
That's it.
Great.
Yeah, because you
Alyssa-
also get discounts for internet and Amazon Prime
Yeah.
and cell phones and.
Right. Alexis? Oh, you're muted.
Muted again. I don't have any questions about this part.
Okay. Mauro
No.
and Hillary, did I ask? I don't know if I.
No, I just wanted to say thank you for including this. I appreciate adding the part about the class dues. One thing I noticed is today on Facebook, a parent was posting a GoFundMe to help with school expenses for her child, and her child goes to Maynard High. And so I messaged her and I said, you could call the school and talk to someone at the school because that shouldn't be a problem. But it seems like it's starting to be on all documentation, like it's starting to get added to everything that the school's putting out, right? Like anytime there's something about a request for money, are you sort of adding a disclaimer as things come up?
Yes, and our generous Athletic Hall of Fame can provide a scholarship for the athletic fee for anyone who wants to participate in athletics. They just have to fill out a very simple, non-embarrassing application, and the turnaround is less than 24 hours if they need to have that athletic, or that also covers WAVM and a few other activities like jazz band, chorus, that are a little more expensive to put on.
Mm-hmm. One of the policies that we approved this summer was made a note about, art supplies or different materials for class. If a child were taking a class that had a requirement for supplies, would that teacher include that there's help available?
At the high school, we don't require students to bring art
Okay.
supplies, or we provide the graphing calculators, art supplies. So I don't know if that might be younger grades that sometimes they say bring a purple marker, a glue stick. That's not us. We just say, please bring something to write with, and a notebook and
And
a folder.
yourself. Okay. I had
Thank
one
you.
question about the technology piece. Do the students sign off on like a separate themselves on this handbook, like that the technology, is there a certain separate aspect that they're attesting to, that adhering to like that particular part? Because I know that has like the social media piece and a lot of that's just tied. I just didn't know if there was like some other information that they sign versus like the parents reviewing
Both
with them.
parents and students sign
Okay,
our
so the
handbook
signature.
sign off.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember if it was both of them or if it was just the parent signature that, oh, maybe I should have just gone back and looked at the full thing. Sorry about that part. I wasn't looking at that part. Thank you for clarifying. All right. And then I guess moving on to the phone pilot
Yes, so I thought
procedures.
this would be the most interesting conversation of the evening. We have been working with our faculty. The faculty have asked for help. If you've spent time with a group of teenagers recently, you've probably had to watch them be on their phones while talking to you. There's really solid research from all around the world that shows students don't learn as well when they're also on social media, messaging, and or playing video games. So the teachers were really asking for help. Please keep social media, video games, Netflix videos out of the classroom, and please don't make the teachers have to be in conflict with their students. So we've done a lot of research. We've met with groups of parents, groups of students, groups of teachers, and Away for the Day is an organization. They have a website at awayfortheday.org, and it sort of compiles all of the research about the how hard it is to learn to resist your phone, but also that there are real benefits that students start to feel after experiencing class without the phone in their hand. The benefits include talking to the teacher, talking to each other, and really engaging in schoolwork, which I'm sure we all remember from going to school before cell phones. It's very easy to hide in a cell phone while when things are hard, and the teachers really want students to come to them when things are hard or to work with each other. So what we're piloting is called Away for the Day. It's the one the students chose. The phones are to be away. At the beginning of the day, they're to be zipped up, turned off, zipped up, out of sight, out of mind, away for the day. If a student needs between classes to take a quick peek and see if their parents or their boss is messaging, they can then go to the main office or the nurse's office and ask permission to use their phone, but no phones in class, no phones as calculators, no phones as notebooks, no phones as watches, just no phones in class. Phones are allowed at breakfast, of course, and in the cafeteria at lunch during students' own lunch. Anyone who is having trouble and is seen with a phone, the teacher's just going to let administration know. We have a supply of the hard cases that are clear. They're magnetized. They're super safe. They don't smash or break. And the student will just click the phone into the case and pop the phone right back in their bag. The phone will never leave the student's possession. The big natural consequence is if it's before lunch, no phone at lunch. If it becomes an ongoing problem, there could be sort of days of phone suspension where the student is using a case for more than one day. And that's pretty much it. We're going to keep talking to the students about it. And if, for instance, people are concerned, parents and teachers are concerned about the students being able to check their phones between periods. A lot of adults think that won't work. That was very important to students. So we'll just let the students know. If that's really important to you, just make sure it doesn't start bleeding into class time and making a problem. We really want this to work. It's the least punitive, the least confrontational, the least problematic way to deal with cell phones in schools. And so this is what we're proposing, and we want to keep looking at it throughout the year. I can report back to you, certainly, and the students will be very vocally sharing their feedback, I'm certain. We need parents' help too, so I'll be sending home a letter with your approval to parents, letting them know what's proposed and how they can help.
Thank you. I was able to attend one of the sessions about that. And I know that it was a lot of parent, interest in this, and it ranged from no phone at all and versus phones during break time, right? And how to moderate that. And this bag approach that I'm guessing that's where you were talking about, is that there's like these magnetized, like these bags. Is that the phone would go in? Is that what this is?
Only if the phone is a problem.
Okay.
If the phone is not a problem, it's just off and in the student's own bag all day.
Okay.
And they can peek at it between classes and
Okay.
use it at lunch.
Okay.
And then
So
there's a case it goes in, a magnetized case that it goes in if the phone becomes a problem.
So it sounds like this will still, so there's not going to be a standard rule for everybody, like you come in, put your phone in a case like right away when you come in the classroom, right? So that's
Nope.
not going to be, because that was one of the, I guess, the thoughts
We
or
offered
ideas.
that. We offered
And-
that. The students don't want it.
Okay, well, I just want to make clear, I don't know if the students decide this, so I
Nope.
know, because the parent perspective was very strongly that the phone would not be, from what I heard at the polls that were taken, because you guys did some excellent, do a quick poll. What do you think? And the majority of the one that I went to seemed as though parents wanted phones away from their children, except for break time, like so lunch. And so I, as one individual, am very interested. I think there needs to be the way it's worded here, I'm not comfortable with this because it seems like it's still going to be a lot of burden on the teachers to be like, you need to put it away, like, monitoring during the classroom, because the access to the phone might be on their person. And by doing that, tempting to do. I know students who have two phones. They've give one phone away, as their,
No giving away. They stay
But-
on their person. No, we're not confiscating. The teachers will just call for an administrator or another monitor, and we will take care of it.
what is that? Because I was reading that and I'm a little confused. What is that supposed to do? So you're calling for someone to do, what is that second person supposed to do?
Hand the student the case. We're
So
going to
you
do a lot of teaching of the teachers and then teaching of the students.
So the teacher won't hand the student
Nope.
the case?
Nope.
So is this because the teachers don't want it? I'm just kind of understanding
It's
why
to
we need
It's to allow the teacher to keep teaching.
that's what I'm trying to understand, that
Yeah.
step, like what is, like, I know the teachers obviously talk to students about like, correcting behavior and stuff. That's part of their teaching. Like stop talking over here, even if it's not phone related, there is certain corrections that happen during a class. So it just seemed odd to me that this particular correction, the teacher wouldn't do, that they would call an administrator in to address it versus just saying, hey, here's your thing, put your phone in there. Like, do we not want to, I would want to be curious why we would not want to do that instead of having a second party come in to give a bag to put your phone away. That just seems a little bit, I might be missing something. I don't know.
It's just to make it clear. We've talked to the students a lot, and we're going to continue to do teaching, and the teachers are going to explain it. And it's just to make it very clear that it's not the teacher's job to fight phones. Phones don't belong in a classroom. And it's not about really breaking a rule. It's about students learning to resist their phones. And it needs to be a conversation that is sort of scripted in the away for the day way, rather than a teacher might be angry or a teacher might be emotional. We have a script of what we're going to use. You made a mistake. It's okay. It's not a problem. Here's your case. Get back in there. You got this.
I personally think that if everyone has the same practice in every class, like you come in, your phone goes in the back or whatever, you avoid those.
Teachers don't want to police phones or have them be in a holding area or anything like that. They really want the whole thing removed from the classroom. That's what they asked us for, because there becomes arguments. And it's very, very hard for 35 teachers to all do things exactly the same way and in a way that doesn't make students upset. We
I
have
hear
a
that.
plan. This
No,
is how
I hear that. I just think there's a lot of room for inconsistency in this particular way and subjectivity.
that's
If there
exactly what we're trying to avoid.
I know, then that's what I'm worried about with the way it is. It's like you're gonna call somebody, if the phone isn't even on their person when they sit down in the classroom, then there's no need for, like, they come in and just put it to a certain area, like, you have,
Yep.
off to the,
But that would be an entirely different plan from the
right.
one that we created.
Right, I know. That's why I'm a little
Right.
surprised just hearing the sessions that we had to seeing this. This still
This
relies
is
on a
the
lot of,
most, this is the version of a plan that puts the most responsibility on the students to police each other and themselves, and to really learn how to resist their phones, just the way we all are here in this adult meeting.
and I think my point is I don't think students are developmentally ingrained enough to be able to do that. I think that that's part of where it's a dire issue with the phones, that raising phones in the classroom is not a new conversation teachers are having with students, and yet students still don't self-regulate. I know that there are successes in other schools that have done a flat out, model of, your phone goes here and it's worked fine when students learn that this is the expected behavior. I go in, my phone can't be on me. It avoids that confrontational discussion of like, oh, I see your phone. Now I got to call somebody like that. You eliminate all that because the phone is not on their person. It goes right to the side. I think that I would not be in favor of this approach, because I think that it is more of a students can't self-police themselves on the phone. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a Debbie Downer about that, but
Well,
Mara, I don't.
because we'll be reviewing it constantly, and we have teams of students, including our student council and our SAC, who are, have said, we don't agree with it, but this is the one we will buy into. This is the most lenient we can be about phones. And we, have committed to try it with your permission, of course. And if it doesn't work, everything we do will be less lenient and more restrictive. But we want to believe in the students that they can pull this off.
Morrow?
So I have a couple questions. One is, what happens in certain instances where a student is done with all their work and they have, say, half an hour left and everybody is still working? What is the teacher doing for those students where those students would normally turn to their phone? They've already done all their work. They would turn to their phone to like keep themselves occupied. So I'm just wondering, like, what happens in that situation? What are the teachers doing to, get those students to either work on something else or, I don't know. I
think that's such an excellent question. Teachers asked for this, and in some ways it creates more work for them, because some teachers have fallen back. Back in the day, we had sort of a, when you finish this, here's your choice of this or that. And there's less of that these days. And the teachers have to be ready. And it's just an excellent, excellent question. Instructionally, that is the teacher's responsibility.
Okay, thanks.
Phones won't be an option.
Right.
Books are an option.
Yeah.
Right.
More math problems is an option.
Right.
Khan Academy on the Chromebook is an option. I
Yeah,
can
so
think of lots
so
of things.
speaking of the Chromebook, I guess that's my next question, because I know a couple of students who may just hop up a tab that's gonna bring them to something else that they can do to, distract themselves. So I know that, teachers do have that way, the way of being able to close all the tabs.
Yep.
But part of my issue with that is that, I know how I am with, I've got a million tabs open. And, there are placeholders for things. I'm working on one thing, but I'm working on something else. And I know that this, at least with one of my kids, has been a problem previously, where he's working on one thing and, he's in a class for another thing. And maybe he does open up a tab, that he's not supposed to be on, but the teacher closes all the tabs and he's lost some work. So I guess the question is, how is that going to help? Or like what? Like, I don't agree with that. It's, if there was a way that the teacher could, close out the specific tab, that I'd be fine with, but like closing all the tabs, losing work where kids are struggling to get through the work, that's not okay.
Agreed. And I want one of the professional development activities we have planned is how to use that software to block watching videos, playing video games, and going on social media, but still allow appropriate use of tools we have like Khan Academy, IXL, Newsella, where students can read the news. There's so many great ways to use tech when there's a little downtime.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
it won't be perfect at first.
No, I'm
So
sure. it won't.
please, those of you who are parents, please be prepared to just call us or email us if there's a problem. We're all going to have to communicate a lot. It's going to be a big change for the kiddos
Alexis?
and the teachers.
Oh, sorry.
I have a question, and I understand the policy, and it seems very middle of the road compromise-ish between students, parents, and the faculty, the teachers, because you need the buy-in from the students to be able to move forward with this versus them feeling it's very punitive and the need for behavior modification in this sense. But it also feels very honor code-ish.
Yes.
So from that sense, at the beginning of the year, are students required to read through this and sign off that they understand this policy and that they will be following it over the course of the year?
Yes. And there's a pledge they can take if they want to.
Okay. And so, but you also mentioned that if it doesn't appear to be working and you need something stricter, this is written in for, I assume this pilot is for the entire year, but if you're reviewing it over the course of the year, is there a mechanism for you to go stricter?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we wrote in that we're going to do a formal review each quarter.
Okay.
So every 45 days, we're going to do a formal review. And we meet with our student advisory committee. I invite you now, please come. We meet with our student advisory committee each week, and we will be getting an earful, I'm certain.
Oh, I'm sure you will. I have no doubt. It's just those 45-day sort of check-ins, that's not in this language. So unless I missed it, which is a possibility.
I didn't see it either.
It's in the very first paragraph.
So I did miss it. Focus on academics. No,
Mm-mm.
no.
No, it might be in the
Yeah.
handbook and maybe
It's
not
the
on.
very-
Oh,
It's the very last sentence. of the
Oh,
first
I'm
paragraph.
sorry.
Very last sentence.
Of the
Oh,
first
okay,
paragraph.
okay, okay.
It
Oh,
does.
it just says we'll monitor
Yeah.
closely and will be
Closely,
reviewed.
okay.
So maybe just expand on that with like, I don't know, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You know, if you're gonna review it and there's the potential for it to be stricter.
Maybe I
uh,
should add that.
Yeah, like it will
I
be
feel like it's
monitored, like
missing-
reevaluated every quarter and.
Yeah.
It can be changed.
I feel
Yeah.
like a student or parent can come to you and say, well, all you said in here was, we're just gonna monitor it. And you can't make it stricter than what we already agreed to.
I'm sorry to interrupt, I just thought perhaps you don't know, and it may not have come up in the forum that you came to, but we have a few parents who are passionately against any time without being able to contact their children
I bet.
and are very emotional about it. So this is going to be hard for them.
Mhm. Those were my only things.
Mary?
Yeah, on that note, Liz, a parent who has their child going to the Parker School, they instituted a stricter policy, more like what Natasha's talking about, a couple of years ago. And they said the hardest transition was for the parents. They heard more from the parents than they did from the students. I just want to say thank you so much for taking a step forward on this. I have a file that goes back to 2018 where I personally did a lot of research on all the different school systems that were already doing this. And then unfortunately COVID hit and it became dead in the water. And I am so thrilled because all the research says that this is the way. And, you know, we talked about the academic, you know, the challenges that we've gotten, that I see this as, you know, really helping our students to do much better in school, and just the attention and that. I also would have preferred to have it be, you know, put your phone in a pocket and, you know, put it in at the beginning of the year, beginning of the class, and take it at the end. But if this is what we need to start with, to get everybody on board and to understand this is the way we're going. It may not be the finish, but we are going. I do not want to hear that it didn't work and so we're not doing anything. We're going back to the old way. Please tell me that that's
Oh,
not.
it's gonna go the opposite. If
Yeah,
this doesn't
exactly.
work, it's gonna get more
Exactly.
like it's no fun because it's
Right.
yeah. That's how I would say.
It's passion. I mean, I'm really passionate about it. If
Right.
even if the achievement gap is narrowed for even 5 students because they stopped hiding in their phone and started talking to their classmates and talking to their teacher, that's it. I'll be over the moon.
Exactly. Yeah. And to
I
that
expect
end,
everyone to do better socially as well as
that's
academic.
the other piece, just to be able to have people, these kids talk to each other, or be able to talk to adults, or that there's like so many great facets about this, you know, the direction that we're going. So, and just as a further note, when the first paragraph that you talked about, you know, it's going to be monitored and assessed every quarter, to put that highlighted in the
Okay.
additional language, that it will only get more restrictive, you know, something like that, so that they know that, you know, they take advantage of this and don't follow the rules with this. Well, guess what? Like Natasha said, you know, it's going to get even more restrictive.
And let them know, like the majority of the school committee was actually more in favor of a more conservative. So it won't take much convincing to go that route. So that's probably where you need to be like, look, I actually was like advocating just the softer approach. The school committee, it was the majority were willing to be like, phones out the door, you know.
I don't think
When
students would believe it.
When I filled out the survey in that meeting, that first meeting, I was one of the parents that said, no phones at all. So.
I want this at Fowler. Can we put this
Yes,
at
yes, and
Fowler,
that's-
please?
Yeah.
and I
Because
know
the
that,
peer pressure there is enormous
right.
from the kids as they are moving up. My 2, I refuse to send them with phones. And every week it's,
Everybody has
you
a
know,
phone.
my friends have it in school. My friends have it in school. They brought their new phone, and the pressure is enormous even at that age.
Yeah, and I do know that the principal, they had sent out a survey toward the end of last year, so I know he's in favor of, you know, doing something like this. So You're
I
the,
believe Keith was actually at the one that we
Oh,
went
good.
to. I thought he was at one of the sessions just to listen in, or some of the leadership. So I know he heard, because there was a lot of Fowler families who have siblings in both schools and who were advocating
good.
for that. I think it will make the high school eventually experience easier if that behavior expectation starts at Fowler.
Yep.
And then, you know what I mean? Then by the time they get to high school, it's not a new thing. Hillary?
So I actually really like this policy. I, speaking to kids who feel like they feel more comfortable having their phone on them. And I've said, well, then as long as it's put away, you can have your phone on. Like having the phone in your possession isn't the problem. It's using it during class that's the problem. So if you can follow that rule, you can have your phone. And that's sort of the real life way. And so I really like that. I have a couple of concerns and questions. One concern is I know a lot of kids that don't speak English use the phone to translate. And do we have students that are using the phone as a means of communication? And are we taking away their means to communicate?
No. And we have a couple of students who use them medically, and they as well, their teachers will know ahead of time if it's
Okay.
used for communication or medically.
Yeah, if like the pump or something.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I'm wondering, I'm sorry. Okay. So one concern I've heard both from people at Maynard as well as online with different forums about this is both students and parents feeling like they need their child to have a phone. So if there's an attack on the school or school shooting or something, they can contact their kids. And I know personally, I feel more comfortable if I could contact my child, but the actual data shows that that's not what you should be doing. And so I didn't know if, because that concern is so widespread, and I have that concern despite reading all the actual data, would it be helpful to have Officer McCann speak to the kids about how, making phone, if there is an incident, I assume they've actually already been told this, but if there's an incident, calling the parents is not a good idea safety wise, and maybe writing a letter to parents saying, don't call your kids if there's an incident and it's not helpful. And these are the reasons safety wise it's not helpful. Because I didn't know if that would help negate that concern with the actual facts that are opposite.
And students will have their phones if there's an incident. Many students, as long as they grab their purse or backpack on their way to evacuation, that's usually possible.
Yeah. But for the kids who might have their phone locked up or, feeling like they can't call
we
their
will be
parents.
bringing the magnet out when we evacuate. Obviously, in a real crisis, they'll break it and get their phone.
Yeah. But
That'll
even,
be
while sheltering in
last
place,
thing
they're not
we're
supposed to
worried
call.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I was just mostly concerned that so many people feel like if there is a shelter in place, they're going to call their kid, and having phones ringing is not helpful to that security plan.
It really isn't. And we have talked about it. And although most kids don't use their ringers anymore.
True. And then, so picturing this in play on the first day of school, and, if the way this plays out is that the kids have their phones put away, they get into class, and 5 minutes into class, a kid pulls out their phone, and does the teacher say, like, remember, like, no phones, put your phone away, and then, like, the next time they call the admin? Or is this, the first time they pull out a phone, they just call the admin? And if that's the case, are there 35 of you that can respond 5 minutes into the first period of the day, the first day of school? Like, how are you guys going to be everywhere?
We'll get to, if there are 35 calls, Mrs. Doktorov and Mr. Prail and I will get to the students when we get to them. I mean, there may not be the complete immediate consequence. We are planning to divide by pods on the first few days, each block, walk around. teachers often don't see the phones because they're behind the Chromebook in the back of the room. So
Okay.
we imagine we'll see a few and pass out a few cases. But really, it's about the only way we can be consistent is no warnings, no second chances. The case isn't that big a deal, put it in the case.
Okay. And then the last one is I heard a child say that they when they get dysregulated and upset in class, part of their coping strategies they've worked on with school staff is to listen to music to regulate.
And that's possible on the Chromebook.
Okay.
The Chromebook has music. It has YouTube,
Okay.
it has Spotify.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And they can come down to the office and use their phone if they need to, or with their
Okay.
counselor or Nurse Janet. That's perfectly
That was my
fine. They
suggestion.
just
I
need
figured the
permission.
counselor. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for tackling this, and I wish you
See
lots
how
of
it
luck and
goes.
patience.
I think if, my general philosophy as an administrator is if you do things to students, it really doesn't work well, that you really have to do things with students. And I have my own doubts about certain parts of this. And I know I'll have to be on roller skates at the beginning, but I do believe students know that cell phones have no place in class. They
Yeah.
do. Our students are smart. They know that it's
Yeah.
taking away from teaching and learning.
Yeah. I think
And
this is
it's
great. I'm really
awkward
grateful you're doing
too.
this.
If they tell me all the time, they get put in a group, and if half the group is buried in a phone, it's very awkward and they don't like it.
A couple of things, if I could just, and before we then figure out like next steps for this, on that sentence that you were looking at to revamp or seem more firm about monitoring and reevaluating piece, would it be something I'd be curious to see, like, I'd want to hear more as a school committee if you could report back to us on what those quarterly findings are. And I
I'd
don't
love
know if
to.
I don't know if it would be helpful even to put that in there to let them know that, that the school committee, will be monitored or whatever. And, because it is policy. And so that, information at some point will be conveyed to the school committee for us to, we would need to hear that from you if there is a consideration of amending or changing at some point. The social piece, I know, and kind of what Hillary was mentioning a little bit, but I know a lot of kids who are on the spectrum, and that social engagement is very foreign to them. That going into the phone and doing Roblox or whatever it is that they might be doing is what grounds them, sometimes in a stressful environment or whatever. So just from a counseling perspective, it would be really, and I'm sure this is going to probably happen anyway, but just I wanted to say, just to confirm that, that the counselors who have awareness of students who fall into some of these profiles that they probably have, know already, just make sure that like we're checking in with like part of your analysis is, or your review and monitoring it is seeing if some of that data, if we're seeing some of the dysregulation or something that's with some kids who are of special needs, that we would want to understand how this policy maybe might need to be tweaked if this is often a component for coping or whatever, and we need to think of a different consideration for it, or how do we factor it in to make sure that we're not causing some unintended, aspect where more dysregulation in some capacity that because people don't, some students might not have the tool that they've grown used to rely on to to calm themselves. The other part too, when we're talking about the active shooter and all of that, I never grew up in a school that had to have that as a thought of you know, what do? What is the protocol? Like having those drills. So I really do respect the idea of that is a concern that students and parents, that's their reality now that we just never grew up appreciating or having to really deal with to that level of, you know, access to my children, access to my parent, you know, person in danger. So I think that's a very good point to, you know, and to consider in that part is how do we make sure that whatever policy we approach at some point, that we are also informing of like if there's no phone, this is you know, this is what that alternative is, and how we can do that. And then my last thought was about earbuds. So I know that a lot of students will have their phone in their pocket or even in their school bag, but they might have wireless earbuds in that are so they're listening to, could be like a game or whatever it is, music during, you know, class. So it would be helpful. I know there's a part where you allude to, it just says you can't use your cell phone in the hallway or bathroom. It says, where does it say? Oh yeah, cell phones are not allowed in classroom. This includes the use of calculator devices, note-taking device, or for listening to music. Can we add in here about earbuds as well? Or I think that's the other tool of how, like, for, like, there's, it's one and the same. Like, they shouldn't be in classroom with earbuds in, you know, which might be less visible, but I think the expectation, I don't know if your thoughts are, and there should be that.
Earbuds have not been a big problem at Maynard High School recently. I think that phase may be ending.
It'll be helpful if it just, I would feel comfortable with outline, like that includes that, so that kids, you know, they might think,
Would
oh,
it-
my phone's put away in the bag, but I might have one earbud in my ear listening to something else, and you're still breaking the rule, is kind of what I want to make sure
Right.
is
They may,
understood.
however, want to listen to music with their earbuds that it's on their Chromebook, and that might be allowed during math, during problem time, or,
Okay.
but usually they're more over the ears are back at the high school level, more than the hiding the earbuds under the hair. That was huge 3 to 5 years ago.
All right. I know that what I've seen recently, and so I just wasn't sure if it's something that
We
needed to
figured
be.
that we would take on things like earbuds, watches,
Yeah,
if they become a problem, because
Yeah.
they haven't been.
that'll be part of the monitoring.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have anything else. I don't know if anyone else does on this. So then we just take the next
So,
steps.
so I don't know if I know that last year you trusted me to make the changes we all agreed on
What is
and
I think this
accepted.
one's, I don't know. I don't think that's going to work for the CRA section. I just want to
Okay.
check with, but I want to understand your timeline as well, so we can make sure. So our next meeting, is this something that can wait till our next meeting before you send it out, or is that really too late? And I'm just looking at when our next meeting is.
If after school
Yeah,
starts,
after
Yeah.
school starts.
Yeah, that's on the.
it's not gonna work.
I
That's not
wonder
gonna
if we
work.
could do it just like another quick meeting or something. Just about that.
Because I can have the changes done first thing tomorrow morning. I get into work about 8 and I can have them done before 9.
So maybe we'll schedule like a special meeting next week for just maybe, because I think there might be also like the article, you know, there might be some tweaks to that or comments. So that might be a good place we can maybe, would that be okay, Liz, if we reconvene and approve something next
That's
week?
not something I can answer. I think, is Chuck here for the superintendent at this point?
Oh, Chuck, you're up. Oh, you're muted too.
Oh.
Oh,
I am here. We're talking about a meeting on what day?
well, we hadn't decided yet, but we want to, I don't think the school committee is ready to vote on the handbook right now with just
Right,
some
I
of the
understand that.
suggestions. So if we meet next week with that, and we have a meeting, we'll decide on what day that might be. That will allow school processes to like communicate to parents and all that?
I would suggest you contact Brian maybe tomorrow,
Okay,
to see what dates work. I know for myself personally, like the 22nd, a week from today, I'm already booked.
okay. All right, we'll see where we can squeeze in, just, oh, Colleen has her hand.
Know
Okay.
that he had suggested postponing tonight because of the issues to the 22nd. He doesn't have anything on his calendar, the 22nd or the 21st for that matter.
Natasha, you and I, well, the 21st is the CPC meeting for the bleachers.
Okay.
And the
Yeah,
22nd, Natasha and I have a town budget subcommittee meeting at 6:30.
Right.
yeah, so maybe
And it
we
doesn't
ask-
have to be at 7 o'clock. It could be
No, but maybe
earlier.
we ask them to see if they can reschedule that one to 7, Mary, or that we
Yeah.
can't go to 7, and then we can maybe meet for us for
Like at
6.
6.
Yeah, I don't know if that'd be work for everyone else.
Well, Principal York, when are you trying to have this sent out by?
I need it on the first day of school at the
Okay.
very least.
Okay,
Okay,
we can
So-
definitely do that.
yeah, so why don't we plan on
before
having
is
just
better.
a special meeting on the 22nd, and then Mary, you
Yep.
can email Jeff and Greg to let them know that we would have a meeting and we'll join them.
Can everybody do
Well,
6
7.
o'clock on the
Is that
22nd?
sick? Is that, Alexis, is that?
I'm not
Would
100%.
it help if the edits are made tomorrow to provide that tomorrow or Monday, and we could provide feedback in writing, maybe, just to make it more likely that it can be voted quickly on Thursday?
That sounds
Sounds like a
good.
good plan.
Mauro, are you available on the 22nd or?
Right now, I am.
Okay, uh-oh. And Alexis, you're on the fence?
I'm on the fence. We're still away next week, and I was
Okay.
trying not to have a lot of meetings next week to
Okay.
actually enjoy my vacation.
hear
And
ya.
so I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, all right, well, if the whole week won't work, then it sounds like it might not matter if it's a different day.
Could you
then
provide
for you.
feedback though, Alexis? Will you be?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. Then
Yeah.
Oh,
that would
yeah,
be good.
absolutely.
Okay, that'll be good.
I'm
right.
working part of the day every day next week, so
Yeah. Right.
School
Okay, so I think
starts
we have a plan then. So Liz, you have some feedback, punt that back to Brian and school committee when, and Colleen when you're ready, and then everyone will assess that. And then be prepared to either provide feedback for whoever can attend, or if there's anyone who can attend, they can, I would say, email Liz and then CC me if you're not able to attend, just so that I can kind of see everyone's and if you're not there, I can make sure that it gets discussed with everyone else.
And Colleen
that-
can post it tomorrow.
Yeah, and I might actually add the bleacher one there because I don't think we're going to get into
Oh,
tonight. Just
Okay.
I'm probably going to send a draft just to get it in there, and then we can send something amended for the comments, because Brian had to hop off tonight and I want to make sure I go over it. He's had a chance to hear about it. So
Thank you
okay.
very much, Liz. Thanks for your
Liz,
hard work on
thank
this.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
you.
We put
Thank you.
you're on
I'm
the
sorry
hot
to
seat
throw a
tonight.
wrench into things.
Thank you for all
know.
your time. It really means a lot to the students.
Thank you.
Thank
Uh-oh.
you.
Okay. Bye. Oh, Hillary, what's up? Looks like you're supposed to say
So
something.
we are supposed to approve the other handbooks as well now with their policy. Timing wise, that's not looking super reasonable, but our policy is that we would approve any handbooks including anything relating to conduct. And so that would include the Green Meadow and Fowler handbooks.
So maybe I don't know if there was a plan about that, but would that be something that we feel strongly that we need to do it urgent right away before the beginning of the school year, or do we feel like we can start that as a new practice with this in this year, And so we can make sure before the next school year that we allow space for all 3 handbooks. Is that a better?
I'd be for the latter. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So for the most part, yes, but the Fowler handbook is even worse about CRAs than the high school
Oh.
handbook.
Okay. And so maybe Liz, you would share your feedback from the school committee with your other leadership members of some of the concerns that we've had. So that might be like, hey, go listen to the meeting, guys, because if we're gonna be reviewing those handbooks, clearly the feedback would be something we would want to carry over, that we're not doing things differently in different schools.
Mhm. They could
All right.
potentially borrow wording too.
Yeah.
Or they could plug in whatever their own procedures are
Yeah.
in the same format.
Yeah.
Well, Liz, thank you for carrying the burden of being the first one to, run to the
Chuck
flames.
raised his
Chuck.
hand.
Hi, just for legal reasons, I'd be very reluctant for any of the 3 buildings to enter even the first day of school without the handbooks approved.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, are you meaning, Chuck, that you think the other handbooks, we should approve them before school
No.
starts, or?
But before the first day of school, I would really recommend that you take up all 3 handbooks next week. We can talk about it with our leadership group
Okay.
tomorrow, so we're ready. But although you go in thinking I always entered every school day. I think every principal does, saying today's going to be a great day and nothing bad is going to happen. But even on day 1, if something really unfortunate happened and a handbook was not in place, legally, it puts the district in a terrible position.
All right, so plan B is for the agenda, we'll just say handbook approval, and we will kind of leave it vague. So whatever handbooks we can get
Yeah.
amended, suggested, or whatever, they can all be sent to us. I think in that context, we may have, we will, have that protection of approving all 3 of them, or the expectation. It might not go through the same rigor for the other 2, I think. But with at least they'll know that next year going on, it will be a little bit more of in-depth, like review, and then we'll approve at a subsequent meeting. So that kind of bridge the need versus, okay, great. Thanks, Chuck. Okay, so now moving on to we have alumni. Okay, alumni bleacher project updates and planning. Brian had signed off a little bit, but I know he shared some in his superintendent report that he didn't mention because we were gonna go back. So I think I'm gonna just kind of highlight that a little bit, and then we can if that's okay for everyone. So for the bleacher update, he indicated that maximize the seating capacity, and he just talked about the number of spectators accommodating given space. This is, I guess, some of the reasons why bleachers are necessary. Large audiences, including sporting events and graduations, improve visibility, just enhancing the experience compared to a flat seating arrangement, space efficiency, and then that we are strongly considering, I think this is where we had gone, the 750 seat bleachers as opposed to the 950 seats. Versatility, bleachers can be used for many events. As we mentioned, durability and maintenance, modern bleachers are made from more durable materials like aluminum or steel, which is better safety. I think the safety piece, they're all up to code. So I know that when we've had students who have gotten hurt, a lot of it is because their legs or things have gone through the bottom of the bleachers, and that's, won't be occurring in any new bleachers that we build. Press box. I know we've gone back and forth a little bit about different ways to address this, but it looks like Brian's approach or recommendation is that the press box is necessary. And the reasons that he's outlining is for media coverage, the elevating position, it provides a controlled environment for WAVM for their for the students and to cover events. It's centralized control for served at the command center. The central location provides efficiency and also for technical staff, it provides protection from the elements, which is important considering the media equipment that will be housed there, professionalism and prestige, which I think is more a perception thing versus a need. Let's see, increased revenue potential. So I guess venues with a press box attract more high profile events. And I believe, I don't know, I'd have to ask him, but I thought there was some aspect where if you don't have a press box, there might be some ineligibility to host some MIA games. I can't quite remember if that was a concern that had been found to be true, but I do believe oh, Liz is giving me the thumbs up on there. So, without a press box, we would not be able to host certain MIA games. So that would be without a press box there. And we've already, just for clarifying purposes for everyone, that we did explore the drone option, which was raised at a quad board meeting before, and MIA has a policy, drone policy very specifically that they do not allow that for their games. And then safety and security, by having a designated space for media, the press box helps keep the equipment and safe and secure. So that, I think that is certainly an essential consideration because I know when they were filming our meetings in person for Fowler, just hauling equipment, it was a big deal, and that was like at 10 o'clock, the game. So I just am not sure how that would all work out if there are no press box to house equipment. And then, does it all have to go back to the high school? That seems like quite a big, lift there for students. And I know probably more often than not that certain things would either not be televised, becomes too problematic, or not streamed, which I think would be a disservice to the community and our students. So I think just Brian's recommendation is that this is recommended to have the press box and the bleachers. The cost for the bleachers is not 3.6 though. That 3.6 figure was for $950. So the $750, and I uploaded a folder for everyone. There's a couple of documents I put in there. There's a bleacher. So the $750 was like 3.3. I think that, and what I had put for the draft warrant article was 3.4, just because of I don't know when they're going to do an election, when this might start. It allows a little bit more. I think that's what they were going to be doing with the 950. They were going to be like 3.6 and maybe put 3.7. So if there's any type of change, 3.4 would be the maximum. The CPC application is still, which Mary mentioned earlier, is still yet to be fully approved or allocated. It sounds like they approved the project eligibility already. Now it's just a matter of, from what they discussed with us at the last meeting, they had figures from the town accountant that had balances in each of their reserve accounts, and they weren't sure with the year closing what they could confidently know what was their remaining balances. So their balances could be like up to like 450. So a couple of numbers that got thrown around were like maybe like 150, or up to like 350. They were very firm in that they were not going to be bonding for anything. So in theory, whatever they approved to allocate for us, and this is just based on the last conversation, they obviously could vote differently their next meeting. But I would hope that what the expectation would be that would reduce what we would need to seek a debt exclusion for. So the number could go maybe 3. that we would have to, depending on what we would approve. The challenge that I've yet to figure out, and Greg's on vacation, is that they are not going to be going to special town meeting. So even if they vote at their next meeting, they're not putting forward and maybe we can maybe push a little bit on that, because I think they still might be able to within the window to do that, Mary. But at this point that they've already submitted an article for CPC, and it does not include the bleacher aspect. So they said it would be very likely that they would be going to annual town meeting. So I don't know how that factors into bonding a little bit, like if we could bond for, maybe 3, and then see if we get that funding. I don't know how that would work with Greg. If we wouldn't, if we happen to at special town meeting, if we get a vote passing by 2/3, and then if say like there's an election that's called within 90 days, and then that passes, I would want us to be able to, start right away without having to wait to annual town meeting. So that's kind of just some of the conversation. That's Brian's information update. I want to make sure, because I know I don't want anyone to feel like there was like all these there's a lot of happenings in the past couple of weeks with this. The select board voted, although a majority voted to put the ballot, it had to pass by a 2/3, and it did not pass by a 2/3 majority. So that's where right now is a little bit unknown. They could potentially change after town meeting. They have 90 days to decide to call an election and put forward an article, a ballot question if they do that. Mary?
Yeah, just a question. So the 3.4 million, by going down to the 750 seats, it also is reflective of fewer bathrooms, right? So that 3.4 incorporates that.
Yeah, so the that would be, it's a smidge. I mean, it's not a lot. I think it's like minus 2 hand sinks, minus 1 toilet, but also it was on the bleachers themselves is where you were at 750 is where you don't need that third easement that went up the middle. So it reduced that, and then also the cement, like what you needed for the foundation as well. So that is, I think those were generally the major cost savings. I'm sure there's they have it a little bit more granular, but and in the folder, there's 2 different budget. Let me just say there's 2 different. If you go into the bleacher and article information folder, so there's a budget for 5.9, and then there's a budget for 8.1. If you look at the 8.1, that's when Greg he gotten this for the select board, which is only the 950 seats at that time. So he was like going in the high end, and but we went back and we told him like we're gonna go for 750. If you look at the budget for 5.9, that's where that 750 number comes in. So you'll see it has at the bottom, it's 3.299, but the reason why I said 3.4, if you look on the one he got for there was additional design charges that were added between May and because our contract was fulfilled, and we had gone back to them about a couple of different things, and so they were billing us for their work outside of what the contract was paid. So that's where we'll see a couple of those additional designer efforts that were added into the 8.1 budgeting costs, and that's where if we have 3.4, it will include the funding for those as well.
And that also includes the contingencies also that
Yes.
may not come to fruition. We may not need. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So if the contingency on the 950, it has a 10% escalated construction cost, and then there was a 5% construction of owner's project construction cost. And these numbers have kind of in our when we were meeting within the task force, they were going around like 4 to 6. So that's how as they were redoing the budgets and recalculating, because we remember we gone from like maybe it was last annual town meeting and then it went to spring or fall. So that's kind of how I think Phil had been working those numbers. So they're pretty good for a contingency build in for that and on the 950. And I think on the 7, let me see if those same numbers were on the 750, like the same percentages.
Yeah, it looks
Hold
like
on.
they're the same. Yep, 10% and
10
5%.
and 5.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they're the same. Yeah. So that's why I think comfortably, I think the 3.4 works. So if you look at the one from May, you can see the comparison from where the difference where the savings are. And it's a little bit here or there. So you have like the concession and bathroom building, you see it's like $25,000 from, and that's, a couple of different things there. And then under the grandstand and press box, you'll see there's about 100,000 with the new grandstands, the sizing. So 503 for 950 and then 397 for the 750. And that's where that cost savings would be for the 750.
And the smaller template for the press box.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, this is where I also need to get a little bit more information, because I don't think our current press box is a 24 foot. I
No,
don't
it's
know.
not.
It's not.
No.
So I would be curious on getting a smaller, like the 20, there was a larger one that it was a 3-room, and that was the one that was super expensive. They're like, I think we're all like, no, but even a 24 foot seems larger than what we have now. And so my question I would want to ask is, can we even do a smaller one that's a module that's not customized? Because that's what we were trying to avoid, right? The 24 foot is module where it just, there. So if they have an even smaller one that's ours, I want to confirm what the current size of the current one is. And if we could maybe even do a savings, I don't know yet, but that might be another opportunity. If we're saying yes to a press box, but maybe reduce it, that's something we can share with the public as well, which would bring that number down, as opposed to eliminating the press box altogether.
I think just for the town meeting, because it seems like a lot of the confusion has been, we talk about 750 versus 950, and then we talk about, but there wasn't a concrete, like now we're getting concrete 750. It's going to be 2 less bathrooms, 1 less easement. If we have, the specifics for the press box, at least there's no subjectiveness to it, that this is the plan.
Yes.
We've tried to squeak out as much money as we can, but still keep the integrity of what we're trying to do.
There is no industrial kitchen.
Right,
I just
no
want to make
industrial
sure
kitchen, right.
that is very clear for the public. There is no, actually, it's a concession, and the concession section got reduced further as well, because they're having that family bathroom they added as the option. So they're going to have a family room. So you could lock all the bathrooms and just leave only so it builds a little bit more control for use and for maintenance purposes as well. Yep, Hillary.
So I definitely probably missed this when I was out, but
Oh, it might be, yeah.
Keeping the snack shack that's there now for storage?
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be just storage.
What?
That'll be just storage.
Okay. With there's no way to have the storage in the new building instead and then get rid of the snack shack?
The director, they talk about the coaches and stuff, and they wanted to keep an extra storage. I think they have like football stuff, and they feel like they need more storage. So there is a small storage in the snack shack, but it's more for like they have like electrical in there and some other stuff. But not, the feeling was to keep the building that's there as well. That was what oh my gosh, Mike, they
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was his recommendation.
That's one of the complaints I've been hearing from people is that we're going to spend all this money and then still have a crappy rundown building that looks unsafe and awful.
I mean, it's only going to be for storage, so I don't know if you need a pretty building for storage. If it's not going to be, it's used. Oh, are you frozen? Oh, there you go. Sorry. Hillary, can you hear me?
She
Oh.
looks frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, not for a minute.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's from an aesthetic perspective. If it's only used for storage, I don't really think it needs to be cute for storage, but if it serves a purpose that they need, or like, yes, we need more storage, then I was like, okay, let's repurpose that. But it wouldn't be something that like people are, I think, accessing a lot.
And then the one concern I have is a couple times I've heard about this family restroom being the one that's left open. At times at the rest of the rest. I've also heard a lot about in other locations, those family restrooms are what needs to be closed off because they're convenient for people who are choosing to use opiates, and that could be a location where a lot of people overdose, and so to prevent people from doing that in that location, those family bathrooms are what's locked up. So I just thought that was worth mentioning, that's a risk with those locations.
I think they would all be locked up overnight. And so from where we talked last about that, they would be locked overnight. They would only be unlocked for people who have reserved like the use of the space, like I'm going to use the field. So then they would unlock it, or for school use. So other than that, you don't have access to, the areas at all. I think even if you lock that one, if you leave open the men's and the women's, someone who's looking to do opiates, they can still go into the men's room by themselves in a stall and, do that there. I don't know if it's much more of a deterrent.
They definitely can. I guess just other public places have found that the family restrooms are the preferred location.
Good thought. So for the bleacher dollar amount, just to kind of figure out, because I know is everyone comfortable with 3.4 as our request going for town meeting? Hillary, you good with that?
I'm good with the dollar amount. Can we talk about the timeline for a minute, though?
Sure.
What
Let
are
me
we
just make sure
expecting?
sorry, I just want to make sure everyone's comfortable with that dollar amount first, so I can mentally check off the things. And then, Alexis, does that dollar amount seem
Yeah, that
okay?
seems okay.
Mauro,
Yeah.
Mary?
Yep.
Okay, so Hillary, back to you. Sequence of
So
events?
if we do this at town meeting and it's approved at town meeting, then what happens?
It has to be approved by 2/3 because it would be for a debt exclusion. Then the select board has 90 days to call an election and to put a ballot question for that. So that could happen. Maybe there's compelling information that would convince
Does that
one
90 days
person.
mean?
It was just one person. We need
Sorry.
extra for that software.
Is it that they have to do it before 90 days is up, or if they want to do it, they must do it within 90 days?
If they want to do it, they must do it. Nothing can force the select board to put forward a ballot. So even a town meeting can't force it. But again, I think it's an exercise personally helpful for all of us, to consider, like, for people can share their concerns, either way. So it could be that it passes 2/3 and the select board still chooses not to. But we would take that as a learning experience, and we would reassess, do we go to special annual? I don't know, do we need to tweak a project? Whatever that might be.
So my concern is, and what I want to avoid is either voting on the bleachers at annual town meeting or at the spring election. Because if we need to vote for an operational override, then I'm afraid that those two things being on the ballot at the same time will result on neither one passing. So that's my fear.
I think that if they're both, if we have a school effort and people are there voting for school, I would think the opposite. I think people would vote for both school things, because you have parents who are going to be there, potentially, and the audience, might happen to be more parent. But I think that there's always going to be, I don't know, I don't know the right answer to do it. I mean, let's just say, if it doesn't happen at special town meeting and when we consider, we would reassess, what is the plan? Do we go to annual town meeting? I think some of that will be reevaluating, again, escalation costs for a project, that's going to go up more. I don't know if the project cost is $70 annually for a household. I don't think realistically, there's a lot of savings for every hand, like even for our, saving $70 for one more year, it may be worth the cost of, the cost, it won't be $70 next year for each household. That cost goes up every time we delay it. So I don't know if it's worth $70. But again, I know that there's a lot of things the town needs, and I recognize that this is where every resident has to kind of decide what's important for themselves. And I think they should be doing that. Okay.
Would
Any-
we end up in a situation where, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, my internet's like delayed. My question is, would we end up in a situation where people would vote for it at special town meeting, it would pass at special town meeting, and then we would decide we don't want to put it on the election in the spring because we want to focus on the operational override, but we would be forced to put it on the ballot in the spring because that's when the select board would choose? Or if they would we
Yeah,
at that
they
point have to have it on a town meeting vote first in order to have it on the spring
Right.
ballot?
So they have 90 days, once to prove at special town meeting, they have 90 days to put it on the ballot. Otherwise, the vote that we have at special town meeting becomes like, you have to start over, kind of, essentially. And so then if then we would have to go back to have another town vote if it doesn't happen in that 90 days. So in that sequence of events, though, the challenge, which the select board told us last year they didn't like, was that the election for the spring actually happens before annual town meeting, our town election.
Okay.
So it would be that potentially the election, they would put a ballot for the election before annual town meeting, and then we would cope. So we would still, they don't have to call the election either then, so we would, again, this is going to be a lot of monitoring, assessing, seeing where, what it is. But that's where, yeah, they don't have to do it. And if they don't do it within 90 days, after special town meeting, we would have to bring it again back to annual town meeting if we want it to be considered and at an election, that election. Mary, does that sound?
Yeah,
You're
so
right.
they actually, it's not that they have to call it within, the ballot has to happen within 90 days of that October 7th. So they can't wait for 89 days to then say, okay, we're going to have the ballot in the spring. The ballot actually has to happen
Right.
within 90 days of October. I think it's October 7th.
Yeah, but the election has to happen within,
right,
yeah, right,
right,
that special election, which would be kind of unfortunate because we had an election, so now but it sounds like the cost of an election, I think Greg was sharing, maybe it was like somewhere like under $5,000 to
Yeah.
hold an election. So I mean, not completely unreasonable, but it is maybe that's where we are right now, if that's the direction they choose to do. Any other questions about that? And I just wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to look at the article, if that's okay. So Greg's on here. I mean, Brian's on here. So I'll this language in the article was provided by school council. I highlighted, let's see, so the part that I included in the comments, so there's language provided by school council, and then there was separate language I referenced from a DLS, just so you can look, so the comment to the right is what DLS had as a sample, but just so you can see the comparison for what they, an example to what we got. So basically, and school council had recommended that identify where the bleachers and bathrooms were and concessions will be located in the article. So that's where we added, at Alumni Field and its perimeter, because some of the, like the curb work that's going to happen across the street, that's going to happen not like right at Alumni Field, but for the ADA aspects, that'll happen there. And then any questions about the or the article language, not the comment stuff? I think it's, I don't know how, if we have anyone, not a lot of room for tweaking,
Yeah,
but
didn't it already get submitted?
no,
Or-
that was
or has
the
been-
ballot. That was the
Oh,
ballot
okay, that was
language.
been- Okay.
Yeah,
alright.
this is the article for the warrant.
I mean, the only thing I might add is that this is all being done, and I don't know how to word it, but this is being done according to today's codes. This isn't a subjective thing here. We're doing this because of the code requirements.
Yeah, so in the sponsor comments,
Okay.
I put a couple of bullets there, just like, because I obviously going to make this
Right.
more, but that's what I wanted to make sure. Like, so if we can look over, these are some of the bullet points I wanted to expand
Okay.
on that I thought were important.
Yeah.
But just to everyone. So I just was, gonna make sure that we include like a history of like where we started. So the like when, like on this date, the select board and the school committee met and we decided we would proceed with the project. And then and like what that funding aspects, have happened since then. We would commit, that we're committing to the
Mhm.
750 seats, that we have a CPC application that's pending, that it could be reviewed. Although on school property, it will be intended for
Perfect.
community use. Oh, and also on this, I was remembered, but I think it will be helpful that it will we'll include a heart defibrillator. That was part of because I know that a lot of people were concerned, have raised that as a concern, that this will have a stationary, access to a heart defibrillator in the athletic area as a permanent defibrillator. I'm sure I spelled that wrong. And then water station, water bottle station. Okay. All right. And then that the site, I'm just make sure I'm going to elaborate, and that the site and the approvals have already been obtained. So like the DPW, Planning Board, Conservation Board Committee, I don't know what they are. They are gonna, just so how we've incorporated their feedback, which was actually the family, the family restroom was based on their feedback. They designed to allow for the expansion of the field in the future when the track replacement is deemed necessary. So Mary, I'm looking at I'm sorry if anyone has their hand raised, I didn't.
Nope.
Okay, good.
No, I was just gonna say, if we, just to move on, because the meeting's getting late, maybe if we have any other comments to add or to expand upon, we could just put them next door, if that's okay.
Yeah, so yeah, I kind of I have a motion, because we do
Oh,
need
okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. Because I just want to make sure that the article language is, I want to get that over to FinCom and whatnot, and then thinking about if there's any legal changes, because town council also will have to look at it. So I was gonna do something similar that we've done in last meetings or prior before, that, that if okay with everyone, that you authorize me to amend it, to conform with
Mhm.
any legal recommendations, or to, to update sponsor comments like based on feedback that we may or may not get out elsewhere. So
Natasha, when do you need to have the sponsor comments done?
those are going to be, I would say next week. I'd probably want to have those, like when we meet next week. This is where I would want between our next meeting is to give that for you guys. So like this will be the final, so we're voting on the article language, and then the sponsor comments can will be in draft form until we meet next time.
Okay.
But I want to send the draft article over to Greg and Finance Committee and Select Board for that.
Is everybody okay with the actual language of the article? I am.
Yes.
Yes.
So why
Okay.
don't we vote on that, and then we can all just make any comments about the sponsoring piece, the
All right,
comments.
so I'll make a motion for the school committee to endorse and sponsor the draft article for the upcoming special town meeting on October 7th, 2024, which seeks a town vote for a debt, not a debt excursion, a debt exclusion. Oh my gosh. A debt exclusion to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, borrow, otherwise provide the sum of $3.4 million to pay for the construction costs for new bleachers, press box, bathrooms, utility structures, concessions, and ADA accessibility improvements at Alumni Field and its perimeter for Maynard Public Schools, and authorize the school committee chair to act on the committee's behalf to amend any article language later deemed necessary under the advisement of legal counsel to conform with all legalities and article intent and sponsor comments.
I can second.
Okay, any further discussion on this? I think everyone's turning into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
All right, roll call. Hillary,
Yes.
Mauro,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Alexis. Oh, you're muted.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes. So Colleen, I had that motions in the folder for that. We can work on sponsor comments, but I'll let at least the article language. I'll let the FinCom know that the article language is passed, and so they can be working on that. For the rest of our meeting, I think it's late for, I'm sorry, but I think it's policy. I don't know. What do we do? Are everyone comfortable with?
Just tabling them until the next meeting.
I don't know. I want to ask Mauro and
Yeah.
Hillary, because I know you guys have put a lot of work into this, and
We can just wait until the next meeting.
so we'll
Not
add this in our
Not this next Thursday, but the
the one
September.
after. Okay. All right. So
Fine. We might, I don't know, we might have more, but.
well, we might
it's
have to have a
fine.
policy meeting too at that point. That's not if we need to have like a one-off policy meeting.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go ahead with that objection. Just I'll table agenda item 8 regarding policies. I don't have any chair report updates beyond what we talked about already. Subcommittee, Mauro, anything for you?
No, this was it.
Mary?
Nope, we're all nothing imperative.
Okay. Hillary?
No.
Alexis?
Nope.
Okay. And everyone's good with their subcommittees, right? So we've talked about, I know we talked in our workshop, but so Mary and I will continue, and then Mauro and I, we're gonna go on the personnel, and then Hillary, you and Alexis, no.
Yeah.
You and Mauro you and Alexis are doing DEI, and you and Mauro are doing policy, and then Mary, you and Alexis are doing strategic planning and
Right.
curriculum, right? Okay, got
And
it.
then I'm doing wellness and safety. We actually had a safety
Yes.
meeting today that went really well. So
Great.
Is it possible for the strategic planning and curriculum subcommittee to try to stay on top of exit interviews being sent out to families? And then maybe being assessed for strategic plans for the future?
Maybe for not for our next meeting, not for the special meeting next meeting, but the one after when we do the policy, maybe we should each within our subcommittees by then have a goal that's agreed upon, like what your goal is for your subcommittee or whatever you want to work on. And then we can kind of, that would help me. I don't know if that would be for everyone else. So like we can just add that for your you know, like this is our goal for this year, and then we can kind of regroup. And that will help us when we, as a school committee, when we're doing our mid-year assessment, like how did our subcommittees, you know, how are they doing to work towards their goal for the year? Kind of keeps everything on our consent agenda. Colleen, I know you sent over, so for warrants without objection, I will move to accept the approved warrants for 24084, 25000, 25001, 25002, 25003, 25004, 25005, 25006, 25007, 25008. Okay, they are accepted. And then I think that's no minutes. Right? Was there minutes? Did I miss?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. So no minutes with, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call. Hillary,
Yes.
Mauro,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Alexis,
Yes.
Natasha. Yes. Oh man.
Mm.
10:22. This was a doozy. Colleen, thank you. Chuck, thank you. Everybody, thank you. And Colleen, I'll work on an agenda for the meeting for the 22nd, and I'll email Jeff and Greg about
Change
seeing
it
if
to
we can,
7.
yeah, change it to 7 because we have to have a special meeting before.
Yep.
Okay, got it. All right. Everyone have a good night.
Night, guys.
Night.
Thank you.
Night.
Bye-bye.